202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. Again, that number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. Now, if you've ever caught yourself asking, who is really shaping my child's mind? Tonight's conversation is for you. Because from TikTok feeds to gaming charts and from influencers to algorithm-curated timelines, our kids are consuming content that is shaping how they think, how they behave, and even how they see themselves. So tonight we're asking, is this simply the evolution of a new generation, or are parents slowly losing their grip in a digital world moving too fast? Joining us shortly to unpack it all is parental and society commentator Stephen D.B. Giteri. We are stepping beyond the noise and finger-pointing to confront the tough question of what's really happening behind the screens. So start dropping your comments below and let us know where you're tuned in from, what city, what state, what country, what locality, what town. Na bila kusahau, tunapokea mziki toka DJ wetu, machachari, mleta habari, DJ Moshfire. Na tutaduda kule viwanjani na Mika Ojezi yake nambari 7 mgongoni, akituletea habari za michezo. Na moja kwa moja toka Kilimanjaro Studios ni mimi mtangazaji na mwanahabari wako mpendwa Ali Badawi. Kwetu wananiita mteule na wengine mniite mjukuu wa Masai. Because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui, na sibagui. Karibuni.
Now, let's talk politics.
This is how we are zeroing in on the digital battlefield shaping our children's lives. From viral trends and gaming culture to influencers and algorithm-driven timelines, powerful forces are competing for our kids' attention every single day. Parental and society commentator Stephen D.B. Giteri will be joining us shortly to break it all down from what's real, what's overblown, and where parents are lacking when it comes to accountability. So please drop a comment and let us know where you're tuned in from, what city, what state, what country. We're live on Facebook. We're live also on YouTube. And we've also been told to now start going live on TikTok. So TikTok live coming soon. And the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. If you have any comment, like any advice you want to give us, if you're a parent, any challenges you're experiencing. And I can see Kaiser Soze, a.k.a. Afro-Jamaican, all the way from Canada is tuned in. He's saying, hello peoples, karibu sana Afro-Jamaican. Tell us where you're tuned in from. Watu wa Dallas sijawasikia leo. Watu wa Houston sijawasikia leo. Like people from MA, people from California, please type up and let us know where you're tuned in from. And now to get started, because we have so much to unpack tonight. One of our avid listeners, Steve of Sambaza Podcast, reminded us that back in the day, kids jumped off walls trying to be Superman. Today, however, they're imitating TikTok trends, influencers, and online viral challenges. Tonight, we are diving into the uncomfortable reality of algorithm-driven content that is shaping beliefs, behavior, identity, and values of our children. It's shaping values of our children often before their brains are fully developed. So the big question of the day is this just a generational change, or are parents quietly losing ground? We'll examine how algorithms may be raising our kids, social media shaping their identity, and how influencers are becoming the new role models. Are parents losing the ability to shape their kids, or has social media become a convenient scapegoat? With us in studio is parental and society commentator Steve D.B. Giteri. Now, DB will help us unpack whether this is just a case of bad parenting, or are we living in a digital ecosystem that most parents don't even understand. So ladies and gentlemen, please buckle up and hit your favorite emoji and join me in welcoming a former co-host and founding member of the One Mic Show, Mr. Stephen D.B. Giteri. DB, karibu sana to the One Mic Show. How are you feeling tonight?
Thank you. It's been a minute. Sijakuwa on air, Jesus. Over 10 years now.
Over 10 years.
And I'm happy to be here.
Okay.
Studio naona imeendelea technology maze. Bandi was giving me lessons on how technology is different. I remember the days when tulikuwa na laptops juu ya laptop. Machine juu ya machine. Tulikuwa na Yamaha mixer. Sasa tuko na mixer, iko na page. Unafinya page 1, page 2, page 3.
Yeah.
So
iko mpaka na Euro 4.
Yeah, our mixers have mixers. So karibu sana. Karibu sana DB. Thank you so much. Now, before we get started, maybe answer by telling us what influenced you the most growing up. Is it your parents or your peers?
So first, let me introduce myself, and then I'll let me just do a summary introduction of myself so that at least I can create some context on why I'm a commentator or experienced or an observer. I don't believe I'm an expert at anything. I think it's who's one of the great Greek guys who said, the only thing I know is that I know nothing. But in life, I have seen a lot, and that's why I'm here to share. My name is Giteri Steven Nganga. I go by Dombolo or DB. Kuna wale wananiita Father Abraham na sijakata, watoto ndio wengi na maisha yanaendelea. I was born in Nairobi, Kenya. I grew up in Buru. For context, I'm the firstborn of seven siblings. My dad had mental issues, so I had to step up at about the age of 9, 10, 11. By 13, I was taking my siblings to clinics and doing that kind of thing. I was picking their schools and that kind of thing. So from a parental perspective, even though nilikuwa mtoi mzazi, mimi nikienda high school nilichagulia shule based on swimming pool. Nichagua shule zilikuwa na swimming pool peke yake. Wazazi wangu wako involved.
Oh damn.
And then that has been my life. The age difference between me and my last born sibling is 17 years. So kuna gap, so ni kama nimeolea. And then niko na watoto wangu Mungu amenibariki nao 6. So from the age of 23 to 9 months.
Okay.
And so hiyo ndio inanipatia background ya kuweza kucomment yale ambayo nimeona over these years of semi-parenting with my mom and actually being a dad with children in different continents.
Okay, so that's
yeah. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, that's very interesting. You know, like 6, you came from a family of 7, 17-year gap between you and the last born. You had to step up very early. So now, growing up, where did most of your influence come from? You know, like, and I know you shared the story, you know, like about your dad. We really appreciate that. The easy mental issues sometimes are things like people like keeping under wraps, so we appreciate you sharing that. But growing up, you know, like maybe from your teen years to being, well, even before your teen years, where do you think most of your influences came? You know, like in what you believed, in what you perceived, and just the values that you had. Where did they come from? Peers or parents?
It's a mix. Like most kids, wako to Islands tulikuwa tunaenda kucheza nje. So mimi nimecheza nje. But even if you look at now, siko nacheza nje juu ati napenda kucheza nje. Ni mzazi anakuambia uende ndio atulie. Right? It's the same thing. Mzazi anapatia mtoi iPad. It's a similar, it's just that was the thing that was available.
Okay.
Tukienda huko nje kucheza bano, kusafo, kuenda dufa mpararo. It was a parent anatafuta break, mnaenda nje. So I grew up kutoka Primo. I grew up nilienda Bidii Primary School hapo Mtindwa karibu na Umo. That was a life. When I was about 9 or 10, my mom came across some people who run Strathmore schools, watu wa Opus Dei. And somehow she got me to join a club called Hodari Boys Club. Okay. So natoka kwetu Islands, nilianzia Umo, then tukaenda Buru. Natoka kwetu Islands every Saturday nilikuwa natoka Buru, napanda 58 na shikatao. When I was before nijue kuvuka barabara poa, natoka hii side ingine ya barabara navuka nakuja Kencom, napanda 48 paka Lavi, then I walk to Strath. Hoda at the time was in Strath. Those were my Saturdays for me. Most of my peers, most of my friends, wale tulikuwa nao Primo, wale walikuwa mtaani, all of them were stuck. Walikuwa two Islands, hawatoki Islands. And the Buru of the 90s is not the Buru of the 80s.
Yeah, different.
Because sisi wale tulihamia Buru, sisi tukihama Buru were the first people to move there. So my peers walikuwa wamehama kutoka Jerry, Marish, hizo estates ziko hapo karibu. So it was not the neighborhood that became quote unquote wababi. Si tulikuwa na hii mentality ya umtaa sana, douche, nini.
Yeah.
But then I would leave that every Saturday and go to
Our market.
Yeah.
And nicheze British Bulldog na games zingine
stuck in the mud.
Rounders.
Stuck in the mud.
I was kuna clubs za aero modeling, judo, unwado. And so for me, that, when I look back, that ilini patia level of diversity. Nikirudi shule Monday naambia wase unajua kuna place in Lavington. Ma 3 ngoma hit. Mimi nilikuwa nataka ngoma hit. Juu sana najua na makonda wa mama 3.
Yeah.
So the reason I share that part of the story first is because at a very young age, I realized that maze e-world. Unajua kwetu Buru tulitoka umo nyumba ndogo tukahama Buru, akona house iko na bedroom 4, nilikuwa na bedroom yangu at the time. Madhe alikuwa amezaza, sasa hiyo alikuwa na mpango, alikuwa anaza watoi every 4 years. Alafu kuna mahali kadini kaliingia akaanza kuzaa kama malaria queen 4 kadao. So hatukuwa tumefika hapo yetu. So
na hii ni Buru gani?
Buru phase 5 mali phase 5 bana, mali tuko na hita ya maji moto nini. My friend,
just asking for a friend.
Tuko na raunda, tuko na court, sisi tunakoga na address.
Excuse you.
Address 776 and a court, Buru phase 5 Nairobi Kenya.
Excuse you.
Anyway, so nilikuwa nafikiria nikienda na watu wa Jerry, kuna ghetto fulani itwa down chini, kuna best yangu mwingine alikuwa anaishi down chini. Ukitembea mtaa kuna vile unatembea juu nini wadosi. Mpaka nilienda hii side nyingine hata hao na invite wa pool party, pool house yao ni kubwa kushinda nyumba yenu. Unaanza kusema wait,
unashika dabu.
But then you start comparing things. Huku kuna pool kubwa for the most part, kuna tulikuwa tunazita my dad issues, my dad this. Yani kuna mali na kuna magari na kuna madereva, wazazi waonekani. Nikienda kwa best yangu down chini hapo phase 1 nyuma, wazazi wako, nyumba ni ndogo na shindo watu wanazaliwa saa ngapi? Juu ni room 2 na wamejazana hivi. Lakini laughter, joy, and from an environment, madhangu ndo alinipeleka huko. But from an environmental perspective, nikaanza kuona life by then ni kitu interesting sana. So kwetu mimi nikiendaga home nilikuwa naiga huku wao sewa down chini, kuleta jokes, kuchekeshana, kufanya. Even when my siblings, if you find me and my siblings sitting somewhere after any fight, ni story ni nini, because niliona hivyo tu ndio mnakaa mnapiga story. Father akisema akikuja akaenda nyinyi na wabo mnataka ende ndio mpige story. So foundationally from a very young age, that's one thing I remember, that nilianza kuona life maze, it's just not what you see, there's a lot that comes into it. Right? Na mambo like rais anasemanga ni kujipanga, my friend, na support.
Sawa tutarudi hapo. Hapa kuna mtu hapa Africa Tech 2 yuko on YouTube anasema you are confusing mjukuu na dush na dufmpara ro na raunda. You know, like unaona sasa ile discrimination. Anyway, number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. Nancy Mirosi up on Facebook is saying cognitive skills are becoming very rare. Kids can only hold 3 to 5 minutes of information. We're going to be talking about that. Wacha tuende kwa DJ Omosh Fire hapa ndani ya studio. Real quick, DJ Omosh Fire, karibu sana. And maybe Sante, just tell us, what influenced you the most growing up? Was it your parents or was it peers? Just looking back during those formative years. 1 minute, Omosh Fire, twende kazi, and then Mika will be coming in shortly.
I think for me, I don't know if I would say it's peers. I think I would say the older siblings, cousins, and whatever. Like we had people who we looked up to, and you always aspired to want to be like that particular person because they were real cool. Maybe they were older cousins, it was an older brother or something. So you had, there was a line of succession. And people who you looked up to, these are the people who you hung out with, so those are the ones who I would say influenced me growing up. So at peers, I would say ni sisi, like us guys, like we are at the same level. To me, I don't think there was anybody over there that say I want to be like this guy. Ama kama ule jamaa uaga na ball. Those days ilikuwa ball ya tango. So ule msako na tango, no, si ya tunataka kumfuata. The only reason unamfuata ni juu hiyo tango. But if it was a matter of kufuatana na mtu, it was like either older bro or his boys or, those, and some of them that time were driving. They had cars, they were getting motis. They would show up driving. So you're like, hey, me, I want to be like this guy. I want to be out. And you heard about going out, so you want to go to Kani, you want to go to Vijo, you want to go to those clubs, those places that your parents say those are Sodom and Gomorrah, lakini huko ndio pale unataka kwenda. So those are the people who we looked up to, was like the ones who are older than us, but they were not at our parents' age. Okay.
So a big influence came from the peers who were slightly older than you.
Yes, the older ones, big bro, Kuzo, even like that young uncle, like say mother's last bro or something like that, those they're older, but bado mko hapa tu kwa range, munafuatana tu hapa kidogo. So unamcheki unasema, I want to be like this guy. Yuko seko ameva high school, maybe hata yuko form 5 form 6 ameva longi. We hizi ni vitu unafikiria. So these are the people who we used to look up to.
Okay. All right, DJ Omosh, fire up. Or the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Nancy Mirotsi in the building. Nancy anasema, I wish I were available tonight for a meaningful conversation because I talk about this a lot in my work. We have to be concerned as a community and parents. AI is also changing things, and with few adaptive skills, such as adaptability, our kids will suffer. And then Washeke pia ameingia anasema Nancy, not to mention the art of conversation. I think what Nancy here is saying is something that AI is still fairly new. It's now an additional layer to social media. There's now artificial intelligence, which has not been quite, its effects have not been quite studied. Social media has been with us for a while. There's a lot of studies out there to indicate what it's doing, what it's not doing. We're going to be talking about that. Nancy anasema heading out, but great conversation. Nancy, wherever you are, like just use some earbuds to skize, like if you're working, take a quick break. Kuja comment alafu urudi tena, but we appreciate you so much. Nancy Mirotsi from Iowa. And then again, the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Sijui kama tuende kwa Bandio kwanza ama turudi kwa DB. So DB, let me come to you because it's something that you said that arrested my attention, but I did not want to start that conversation then. Ulisema back in the day wazazi walikuwa nakwambia utoke nje ndo wao wapate break, but nowadays it's an iPad, so it's kind of the same thing but just different tools. But now here's my question to you. When you are leaving to go kucheza outside, whether ni kwa compound ama ni kwa raunda ama if it's even with people in the neighboring community, there were no algorithms. Ilikuwa ni mnaenda mnakutana na wale maboys weko huko ama wale watu weko huko, and there were no algorithms, so the influence, if there's any influence, it was limited to the kids that you are playing with. So do you see this as a clear difference between then and now?
I mean, it's a larger problem just in terms of skill.
Yeah.
But it is not necessarily very different. And this is why I'm saying that.
Yeah.
Unaona sasa, like, si mimi nimetoka nje.
Yeah.
Depending na level ya independence ile mtu alikuwa nayo, nje means very different things.
Yeah.
When Mike yuko hapa, when Mike alikuwa wale watoto wakaju ya gate, alafu angalia wengine wakicheza. Hiyo ndio nje yake. Mwisho imefika. Mimi nilikuwa mtu yule natoka kwetu natembea paka Kasarani. Right? So the variables between there and Kasarani, and I have friends, and sometimes I tell people I'm very lucky in that the way life played out, I did not make some choices. For example, nikitoka home kwenda Primo, and I figured some of the things I figured out very early is maisha yako iko kwa mkono ya watu.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, my dad had mental issues, and without going into details, you learn that because of that, I hanged out. I'm the firstborn. The age difference between me and my mom is 20 years. So it's almost the age difference between me and some of my kids, right? Or me even and my siblings. And so unakana grown-ups unaanza kurealize pia hao wana guessing. Pia hao most of the time they have good intentions but wanabahatisha. Right? Kumbuka juu fadhangu wakina fadhi waligrow Ushago. Fadhangu kimila ya Kikuyu, yeye vile alikuja kwa mwanaume, hakukaa na baba yake.
Yeah.
Alikaa na anko zake. Sasa si tuko Nairobi. So yeye ajui kukaa na mtoto wake. Hiyo hakugrow. So understand kuna guess what can happen.
Yeah.
So mimi nikitoka shule, for example, nikitoka shule nikienda Buru, nikitoka home nikienda shule bidii, nilikuwa na njia mbili. Naweza pitia phase 5 ama naweza pitia phase 3, phase 4, phase 3, naweza pitia phase 4. Nikipitia hiyo phase 5 kulikuwa na msee alikuwa aitwa Johnny Mangwai alikuwa wale mabuli wa kuingia wanakunyang'anya pesa, wanakusumbua. Nikipitia hii route nyingine kuna Steve Crazy. So anytime unaona unahepa, akikushika anachukua 5 bob yako nini. So at that point I figured out, unajua nini, watu ni pesa wanataka. Sasa hizi nakwambia madhangu ameanza kuzaa kama malaria queen. 2. So wageni ni wengi. So there are very many visitors kwa hao. So ukikuja ukiwaimbia, ukiwasemea loyalty pledge, unapatiwa chapa. So now niko na pesa kidogo. First time I saw Johnny Mangwai nikamuita. Nikamwambia Johnny, come niaje, hata niko na kitu yako, nikampatia 10 bob. Akastuka. Because my boys akina Maiteria kina nani walihepa.
Yeah.
Nikampatia 10 bob. next time tena nikampatia 10 bob. Mara kaya 3 4 nikamwambia baadhi hata niko chini si nibaia chipo, akanipeleka place ya Gategi. We became friends. I did the same formula. Na so mimi nikienda shule sasa najuana na wezi. So hata kuna time nafika mahali napiga parking na kaa nao. Yeah. Wakifuta fegi nasema vitu fegi saa nyingine najaribu. Una understand? Variables sasa zimeanza kuchange. Juu hapa parental guardrails hakuna.
Okay.
Right? But nikienda shule ni bully. Nikaona wasenda kuitia.
Uko na waizi huko nje.
Exactly. So now then nilienda chuo Jamu. So again, hizi variables ziko huku nje. Part of ndio nimeanza na ile story mali madhi alinipeleka Hoda. Madhangu jubudangu gestation, madhangu siwezi sema ati yeye alikuwa hapo ati inaitwa helicopter parenting.
Yeah.
But kuna vile kuna guardrails. Unaona sasa ile kwenda hii side nyingine kuna vile watu wana grow, kuna vile watu
kuna behavior tofauti.
Unajua kuna kitu kingine si hii peke yake. Una understand? So hiyo exposure now that I look back created a level of guardrail that I knew this is not the only life. So huyu mse naona hapa ndio dingo ni mwizi. Huyu dingo wako hapa si peke yake. Kuna wase wengine na jamaa anaiba 10 bob. Wala wase wako na magari za mamilioni. Hakuna vile ma 10 bob zitaifika hapo. Una understand?
Yeah.
So kurudisha hii conversation mali umeniuliza, right? So now this technology same thing. Hii technology inaweza fungua vitu mingi sana. Mimi nakumbuka tukiwa watoi tulikuwa naambia tusicheze zintaje hizi PlayStation hizo
kulikuwa kuna PlayStation tukiwa watoi zilikuwa zinaitwa
pinball hizo. Kuna mtu kwa mjinga.
Yeah.
Only to come to the US and find their kids who build those things, they play tournaments. It's a own revenue stream. So there's a way it can be used positively. A wiser man than me said hakuna slice ya mkate inakuwa na side moja, right? Okay. So in all these things, even in technology, right? But now the challenge is, na ndio minasema hapa, what guardrails mzazi anaeka consciously, subconsciously around these gadgets, around the environment that kids grow up, to limit, not to kumaliza, not to eliminate. Elimination is impossible. The outcome variables are beyond you. But juu kuna se nimegrow now, outcomes zetu ni very different. Some doing very well, some who are not here anymore, right? But a parent had to be very, very intentional about the guardrails, the environment. Ndio unaona wale maparents walikuwa wajanja watahongana the average child aende Alliance. Juu wanajua an average child in Alliance will get a B, which is an average of that school, or A-. And take that average child to Jamhuri High School, akona bahati asipokula jembe. Juu Jamhuri ilikuwa reducing agent, hiyo ndio ile kitu ya chemistry na kumbuka peke yake. So you have to be very, so all those environmental things, all these other things being in space, you have to be very careful. That's why unaonanga one of the biggest things, especially with the erosion of our culture, is the erosion of the third place. So there's home, there's school, or there's home, there's work, and then there's the third place. Si tulikuwa naenda kucheza ball, uwanjoso, otifadha, nini. Kuna hiyo, saa hii the third place ni mashini, na kama wewe hauko involved kwa hiyo mashini, kuna noma. Kama uko involved in one way or the other kuongea, ku-create hiyo space, then create guardrails. One of the biggest challenges, nikimalizia, one of the biggest challenges ni wazazi wana complain about hii technology, but they are not involved. Kids will do watakuiga, right? So if you wake up on a Saturday morning and you leave the house to go do things with your children, ndio watashika technology, but guess what? They will know how to do things. Kids are open. But if you wake up on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning with a hangover and give them a device, let me tell you, a TV is the most antisocial thing in this, because hiyo kwa TV moja mwezi ona watu watano, kitu nyi wote watano mnataka kuona. So ule ana rule when father used to watch news. Ni yake. So now sisi hatukuwa na hizi. Wako na time ya kukaa na wewe hapo, unafikiria mko pamoja, but kwa device. So
haya, na tutarudi kwa hiyo story ya TV. Because I have some thoughts on TV versus the technology that we have today. And TV back in the day when there was only one channel, when everybody had to watch the news, when everybody had to watch The Bold and the Beautiful, when everybody had to watch Mambo Leo. But tuongeyo baadaye.
Days of Our Lives.
Na Days of Our Lives pia. Now, kuna comments hapa zimekuja nyingi. One mic yuko hapo kwa simu, tutakuja kwake shortly. But let's go to one mic first and then I'm going to come to the comments.
Lakini yenyewe kwa nini tunaenda kwa ule msee ali nini yuko absent without excuse?
So
afadhali msee wa Kagera ndio aongee na sisi.
Ngoja one mic aongee.
Aya, one mic, talk to us. Tell us, like, what do you think influenced you most growing up now that
if any?
Yeah, if any. Was it parents, was it peers? Where did most of your influences come from? Uno mic.
Ilikuwa douche.
I think it was a mixture of both. First of all, hamjamboni wadau, thank you Bandio kama kawaida for representing. No call no show. Niko mahali andasiege. Anyway, funny enough, I think most the influence was my influence was Amzel we call Babakaro. Dombolo knows him very well. But I think it was a seed that was planted by my mother because every holiday tukifunga shule tulikuwa tunapelekwa ushago. Mimi, bradhangu na sistangu. Like clockwork. So every holiday, April, ushago. August, ushago. December, ushago. So, and sana that for me, I think was my influence because I think like with what Dombolo is saying, unapelekwa, unatoka tu umo, unaenda ushago, you meet somebody, some people different. I remember even when I was second to boarding, I was 12 years old. 12. Nikapelekwa boarding, standard 6. Nikakamilisha standard 8. But when you're there, you start seeing a different perspective, a different lens. Boarding school and experience, that's a different story. But you get to see that what shapes that, how that shapes you is you see that there are the things that you complain that you're not getting, but when you come here, you find that somebody doesn't have, and they appreciate what the little that they get. So for me, my influence ideally was my mom and her brothers and sisters. They're the ones who help shape because now you start seeing how they socialize, and then you try to translate that because you want to have that friendship that's like what you see your mom and your uncles having, and you see her friends. That for me, I can say was my influence. Back to you in the studio.
Okay, asante sana. Uno Mike, the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Apa Hanigal Njeri is saying on YouTube, I just read somewhere on Apple News, I believe about how a high number of kids, how a high number of kids shorts on YouTube, about 40%, are created by AI. They talked about how this is a problem because the shorts don't have a beginning, middle, and end storyline, which is a huge problem for developing a child's mind. So quite profound there. And then Nancy was saying she's leading a workshop with college students in 5 minutes, but next time, Ali, let me know ahead of time. I have data. Future of work skills is my favorite. So Nancy, I will engage you and we'll talk about that. Na Steven JJ anasema mazee huyo hapo umebanja. Mazee tuko pamoja. I think this is in reference to what DB was saying. Now before we go to Mubelwa here, I want to give my quick experience, like of course mjuku wa Masai. Sometimes people wonder, like Masai ulitoka wapi. Mi nimezaliwa Magadi Soda. Kwa watu ambao wanajua. Nimezaliwa Magadi Soda.
Magadi Soda ni nini?
Magadi Soda, those who know they know.
Musharonga.
Yeah, those who know they know.
Si those who know they know. Yuko pale karibu na Shell.
So that's where I was born, like that's where my mother was working, like it was a very rare place because watu walikuwa naishi huko, like they kind of, if you're working for the company, whether ulikuwa unafagia mtaro or whether MD ulikuwa unapatiwa nyumba, ulikuwa unapatiwa, they had so many amenities. It was a very hot place. I did spend the first few years of my life there. And then then when I started schooling, ndo nilikuja Nairobi. My mom was actually still working in Magadi when I came to Nairobi to start kindergarten. Ama ilikuwa naitwaje hizo siku, ilikuwa naitwa nursery school. Yeah, so I came and stayed with my aunt. So that was my first experience, and then we used to go back and forth. And then my mom came and started working in Nairobi, I believe when I was in class 2. But kila weekend tulikuwa tunarudi Magadi. There used to be a company car that would come and pick up all kids who are going to school in Nairobi, inaturudisha Magadi. It was a very amazing time. So growing up now, I remember we moved to Nairobi West when I was nilikuwa mdogo bado. I think I was like 5-6 years old. So basically mi nime grow up Nairobi West.
Na Waindi?
One thing, Waindi walikuwa ni wengi sana.
Okay.
Like, and even now, Waindi bado ni wengi, but
Correct.
now there's a new generation of Indians coming in. Not the ones who've been in Kenya for a long time. There's fresh ones. Now, the one dominant thing in our household was, most of you know me, that I was born and raised Muslim. So religion was very dominant. And this is just not in our household. If you come from a Muslim household, religion is very dominant, just owing to the nature of the religion, which is very different from other, like religions, from Christianity and other religions practiced in Kenya. It's from when unamka asubuhi, unamshwa kuswali. Especially umefika a certain age, 6, 7, you have to wake up. Whether ni weekend, whether ni nini, mnamka, mnaswali, hata kama ni kurudi kulala. So the religion was quite dominant in the household. So there was a lot that was going on outside, in school, and with other kids in the neighborhood. But ilikuwa inajulikana, like hii ni nyumba Waislamu, hawa ni Waislamu. So like we even used to be treated differently. Like hata wale watu walikuwa wanataka ku-influence. Unajua kwa mtaa, there's always, like older kids or not even kids, like grown-ups. Yeah, grown-ups.
Surely.
Who are trying to influence kids. They would avoid the Muslim kids because wanajua hawa hapa nikijaribu kudeal na wao,
they're unworkable.
There's gonna be problems. And then the other reason why there was such dominant influence of religion, now thinking about it later, as a grown-up, we went through 2 parallel education systems, which I really appreciate now. Because tulikuwa tunaenda skuli, like regular school. I went to Moi Educational Center. Shout out to Atuamek. Went to Moi Educational Center, but then every weekend, we had no weekends. Muslim kids, kama mulikuwa na marafiki wa Islam, we never had weekends. So when other kids are playing, asubuhi, saa 1:30, by saa 2 tunafaa kwa madrasa, tumekaa. So that's both Saturday and Sunday. Nairobi kids, we were lucky. We only did Saturday and Sunday. So now, like our family members in Mombasa, ilikuwa sato, sometimes madrasa inaweza kwenda mpaka saa 10. And then maybe Sunday, itaenda mpaka saa 7. But wakitoka skuli inatoka 4 p.m. Daily. Except Friday. I think they used to get an off on Friday. Some would get an off. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, mnatoka skuli, madrasa, mpaka time ya kuswali Maghrib. Maghrib inasaliwa karibu 6:45 hapo. Yeah, karibu saa 1. Then sasa ndo mnaingia nyumbani. And now,
na like, wanakula saa ngapi?
Si sasa mkirudi nyumbani. Yeah, mkirudi nyumbani mtafanya homework, mtakula na mtalala. And then
somewhere over there, mother's gonna come and nyorosha you with timetables.
Yes, and then pia mkumbuka mnaamshwa kuswali subhi. Mwadhini kisikikana, ukisikia mwadhini, unaamka, hakuna nini.
Saidio moshi mwadhini na
ilikuwa
the nini, the call.
Yeah, the call to prayer.
Boss bana. Kuna vitu zingine at least give me grace bwana.
Yeah. So
I'm helping.
So I think
Ramadan bana.
Yeah, so I think part of the reason why sometimes people look at us Muslims, people even we grew in the same neighborhoods and they see us very differently.
Correct.
Whether we like it or not, that had a very big effect on us. And the effect of having a parallel, different kind of education is that there's certain things that we are able to compartmentalize. Because the education system that we went through in Kenya, it's fairly westernized, like with a lot of Western values. So kuna vitu zingine that I think for the most part, it's difficult for people to see from a different angle. But because we went through these 2 parallel education systems, kuna certain things, like the way Western education system promotes, like individual success. Sasa sisi tukienda madrasa, tunafunzwa success is what benefits the overall community. Like if what benefits the overall community is bigger than what your individual success is, then you should trend towards what's benefiting the community and what's not only what's benefiting you personally. So those are things that now as a grown-up, like I sometimes don't like to admit, but they did have a very big impact in just how we became and how we saw life. So for me personally, I would say, like, yes, of course, there was peer group influence. There was influence from school, high school, nilienda changes. There was influence there too. But I will say predominantly those values that were established in some cases forcefully. Mi na mama tulisumbuana mambo ya kuswali kwanza. Iyo kuamka asubuhi tulisumbuana, but later on I came to appreciate and I came to see the effect. In as much as sometimes I used to want to believe, no, this is just me. This is just who I became. But thinking back, that had a very major influence of where, and even when we would go to, like, nikiingia form 1 Lenana school, si form 1 wanaingia kidogo, Muslim parents hata wajuani washakutana hapo, they've already formed a circle and they've already found out kuna mwalimu Muislamu, washaenda wakaongea naye wakamwambia huyu hapa in case afanye anything wewe like you have the authority kumpunish, you have the authority kufanya hivi na hivi. Yes, immediately, and with Muslim parents, like it would happen instantly. So there was that influence also even in high school. Walikuwa jamu, kulikuwa na Waislamu wengi.
Was a war there when you went?
No, war wasn't there. Mr. Maneno was there.
Maneno was
Mr. Okay. Maneno was there, was the principal. Where dibu ulikuwa jamu, so I'm sure you understand, like iyo effect ya Waislamu, in which you would see them move differently. Hata wale Islamu warui, inafika point, wanakaa wanaangalia wanaona, time ya swala imefika, ama saizi ni Ramadhan, kuna vile siwezi kwenda kuchill kule, lazima nirudi huku. So that was actually a very, very big influence.
Swali kwa kwali.
Yes.
Unafikiri hii ilikuwa ni kitu cha maeneo? Kwa sababu mimi nimekulia kwenye sehemu ya Waislamu, like 99%
yes.
Waislamu.
Yeah.
Na kuna baadhi ya vitu ambavyo wamevisema is 180 degrees.
So Tanzania, I noticed there's a certain difference. Okay. Like because Tanzania, Waislamu wa Kristo ni kama 50-50.
Yeah.
In Kenya, we are minority, so tuko katika hali ya kujitetea kila siku. When you are a minority, kuna fit numbers o kwamba hakuna. Okay. That's why sometimes people fight for big numbers, but kuna fit numbers o kwamba hakuna. One thing that I've noticed na, like, I'm not saying this about all Tanzanians, but kitu tu nime notice, there's certain things that are kind of like socially acceptable within Tanzanian Muslim circles, ambazo kijaribu Kenya, watu watakuangalia like Allah. One of those nime notice, and here, kama kuna Mtanzania nasikiza, please mnisamee.
Niko hapa.
I'll give an example. Mtanzania Muislam.
You don't count.
Yeah. I'm everyone in one. Mimi nina dini, nina imani sina dini.
Wewe ni mrasta wa sukari.
Okay, so one thing that I noticed that is that is fairly socially acceptable, kwanza, like inter-religious marriage. It's not that like they happen so much, but it's more socially accepted in Tanzania. Okay. In Kenya, na Islamu, not so much. Not that it doesn't happen.
Is that all of Kenya? Au kwa maeneo ya coastal?
No, most kuna wachana na coastal. Kwanza kule kwa northeastern kwa Somali is even
sasa huko achana na
it's on a whole. Generally, yeah. Like kama nitaka kuoa and then nilete mtu ambaye kwamba si Muislamu.
Yeah.
Nitaitwa kando. Yeah, nitaitwa kando. And it's not that it doesn't happen, but it's still not socially acceptable as it is in Tanzania. Na unajua kidini, mwanaume anaruhusiwa kuoa ahlul kitab. Ahlul kitab ni Mkristo na Myahudi. Okay. Lakini mwanamke
haruhusiwi kuolewa.
Lakini
unajua kwa nini, si ndio?
Hiyo debate ya siku nyingine.
Okay.
I know watu wa equal rights wataanza ABC, lakini that's the way it is. But despite that,
I was just worried kwamba tusijaribu kugeneralize, kwa sababu kwa mfano ukiangalia, nashukuru nimekulia pande zote. Nimekulia mahali ambapo asilimia karibu 90 na kitu ni Waislamu. Na nimekwenda sehemu ambako ungemtafuta Muislamu ukamkosa.
Yeah.
Na the farther west unakwenda Tanzania,
yeah,
Uislamu unazidi kupungua.
Yes.
Na ndio maana utakuta Waislamu, actually it's not even 50-50. Unaweza kukuta ni kama 60 wa Kristo, 40 Waislamu.
Yeah.
Ila ukienda Zanzibar, it's almost 99%.
90% ya Waislamu.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kwa hiyo unavyo move east, hata hizi zote ambazo hizi unaona watu wana share kina Kesh kina nani, hutakuta umeshaikuwa na nani ya share kutoka Kagera, umeshaikuwa na clip ya share kutoka Kigoma. Kigoma wapo, Kigoma ni katika sehemu ambazo ziko kila kitu unachokifanya wao ni radical. Ukikutana na Msabato
radical
yes, ukikutana na Muislam radical. Lakini hutakuta umeshaona shehe kutoka, mara chache sana utakuta labda shehe kutoka Iringa, utakuta shehe kutoka Bukoba, mara nyingi ni Dar es Salaam, Tanga, Mtwara, Zanzibar. Kwa hiyo ndio maana najaribu kuangalia kwamba kuna baadhi ya vitu tunavyozungumza vipo sana Tanzania, lakini viko East Coast. Unaona
yes.
Lakini anyway, tarudi kwenye
but unaona saa kama the other difference pia nimeona na sasa unajua sometimes siwezi kutofautisha ni Mtanzania wa huku na huku, but kitu kingine nimeona na hata some Tanzanian circles hapa za Waislamu, yani katika event ambazo watu wengi wamejumuika, utakuta yani alcohol, pombe inakubalika ndani ya nyumba katika social events.
Mimi hiyo sijaiona.
Yes.
Najua wapo wanaokunywa. Lakini sijai kuona ikikubalika kwa sababu ukiona mtu anakunywa ameificha. Okay. Yes. Lakini wapo wanaokunywa lakini imefichwa. Lakini katika vitu ambavyo ninaweza nikawatetea ni pombe. Ni kiti moto. Actually
unamaanisha nyama ya nguruwe.
Nyama ya nguruwe. Yes, kiti moto. Lakini pia hata sehemu zote nimekaa, hata sisi mnapokuwa na Pasaka, mnapokuwa mna Christmas, ndio as long as mnajua kama mtamwalika Muislamu, lazima nyama ichinjwe kihalali. Na hii haijalishi hata kama yuko mmoja katika kijiji kizima. Kwa kuna baadhi ya vitu ambavyo bado vinasimamiwa, bado vinaheshimiwa. Wanaokunywa wapo, unajua wajinga wapo tu, hata kwenye bunge wapo mpaka Ikulu baadhi, but sio utaratibu katika vitu ambavyo wako very strict. Kuna vitu wako social, mambo ya kuoana absolutely ni kama vile wako lenient katika hilo swala. Lakini kwenye pombe, nguruwe, vitu visivyo halal, nimekaa sehemu ikifika Ramadhan kama hivi sasa hivi, mazee una smell kwenye air, yani hakuna watu wanacheza, hamchapwi shule, hamfanyi nini, because Ramadhan almost 90% ni na ikifika Eid kama una allergy na pilau, my friend, uhame, kwa sababu the entire mji utakuwa uko hivyo. So
okay, so again the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. You of course tuned into the One Mic Show. Hapa we are narrating our experiences growing up. I can see a lot of comments are coming in here. Hapa I have anaitwa Margaret Ngati anasema this is interesting, good memories manze. And then we have Roslyn hapa anasema, as I was saying, a general rule in our home is no TV or technology between Monday and Friday. No TV in bedrooms, maybe a grandma's. All shows are monitored. We watch football or movies together. We're gonna get back to that with DB, but hapa pia kuna Mrs. G anasema, I can't relate. I went to boarding school class 3. My DB's childhood life is very interesting. Mrs. G, tell us a bit more about your boarding lifestyle, because your boarding ukiwa mtoi
standard 3
ni watu wengi.
Uo pengine alienda Nyeri High School.
Yes, but hii mambo ya mambo ya kumonitor technology, you know, cause now that's where, you know, like the effect of technology when ikiwa ni addiction na nini, it's with us even as grown-ups. So
like
now,
right now.
Yes.
Let me so that it doesn't look like we were talking about religion. We were actually talking about upbringing, right?
Yes.
Correct, yes.
And so if you look at what you said and what I said, so for example, I was raised Catholic. And up until maybe standard 7, even I thought I'd be a priest. I was an altar boy. Even my mom thought I was going to be a priest. Paka, I went for Coast Camp. And there was this girl. And then what I sitasema jina juu ni mama ya mtu sahi, actually grandma. And hapo ndio na hiyo njia nikasema dini iko sawa. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. Ni unaona hizi vitu, kumbuka ukizaliwa, one, you don't choose where you are born. You don't choose how you're born.
Innate biological accident.
You find yourself. Yes. Now, the things, especially ndio tukiuliza na hii swali, what influences you, right? So unaweza sema the incidences or the dini, blah blah blah. But if you look at the umbrella, ni mzazi. What you see what he said about anajua some Muslims 180 degrees.
Yeah.
So even I went to Jammu. I grew up with Muslims na
Yeah, there were a
I
lot
know
of them
Muslims
in
I know
Jammu,
najua
yeah.
Waislamu walikuwa Waislamu tu kama mimi time ya Eid peke yake na ni jioni tukienda kuswali ndio tukule kwa msikiti, that's it, but they are Muslims, right? And but home kwao ndio hiyo level ya guardrail haikukua such that ni Waislamu lakini jua kuna expectation understand what I'm saying? So kujaribu kurudisha hii ni kusema yes, all these options are there. Where I went to church, where I went to hoda, where I went to school, but mzazi sometimes intentionally, saa ingine ni kubahatisha tu juu, especially for us firstborns, juu mtoi wa first doesn't matter who you are. Mtoi wa first by the time ukizaza ukiget wengine you realize man, ulikuwa na guess, and then you know it is what it is. But the thing that you umesema, so you have more exposure, right? Hiyo parallel uko na shule, uko na in your case uko na shule, uko na Magadi, uko na Nairobi, uko na, what does that do? It expands your way of
Mombasa.
It expands your way of thinking. It increases your guardrails. It also gives you moments to pause in anything. For example, I know you personally, I know how you hang out. Kuna vile unajibeba. Some people, if you don't tell them you're Muslim, they won't know because you understand, because you've lived along unajoini. You understand what I mean? But kuna mtu kama ameishi tu kwa hiyo one box peke yake of whatever it is, then it is the only thing they know, so that they push it in a way that sometimes you think that they made the decision to grow up in the family they did, and they didn't. As we grow up, the choices we make, that our responsibility. So hapa tukianza kurudi kwa hizi gadgets, what did your mother do? Or what did your parents do? They made sure you went to school. They made sure you went to madrasa. They made sure they kept you around the community. That's why when your parent goes to your high school and identify, because your guardrail, unaweza ndo vute sigara kwa shule, but create guardrail mticheke kuona, because of the way you've been raised, right? These guardrails ziko kwa mikono ya wazazi. Now, gadgets are different. The thing, nakumbuka when our parents grew up, so if you talk to my dad or my mom, they never went out to play. They went out to work in the farm. This playing thing that we used to do was new to them. Them walikuwa ukitoka shule uchote maji. Ukuja upike, ukuni, blah blah blah. So this playing thing started kinda in my generation. Our parents' generation never really played, and if they played, ilikuwa ni ya kuibia. Katikati ya shamba wa slide kwenda, like ilikuwa ni ya kuibia. So easy variables sasa, au ukitoka nje kucheza, kuna parents who are threatened by it to the point where hautoki nje, kaa kwa nyumba, because I don't know that thing, right? Kuna wale kama wangu by the way the situation is, hata hakuna guardrail, weenda, then there's in between, right? And it's the same thing now. We never grew up with these gadgets. It's just a different thing. So how do you deal with them? How do you manage? Hizi vitu zimekuwa, right? Now the next generation will have to deal with something different. So we have to deal with the fundamental concern of how are we raising our children before we attack what are the challenges within raising our children. What do we know? What don't we know? What do we need help with? What do we need to be aware of? What degree of independence do we need to give the kids? What guardrails do we need to create? Ukiamsha mtoi wako, mwende naye kuski, mkimbie, mfanye sijui nini, mrudi home, amechoka. Then hizo ndio zimekuwa interest zake, so utampata akitafuta nini? Vitu za, you understand what I mean? The kids who in this Western world where we are new, who they wake up in the morning and they go to the skating ring. They don't touch their phones. And they're there. Why? Because anshaoneshwa na mzazi, guess what? Ukienda ile tournament ushinde, Red Bull will sponsor you, you can do this, you can do this. Ule mtoto hayuko kwa simu.
And I think the best place kuona ni metro. Mashaingia kwenye metro, wanafunzi wakiwa wameingia, utagundua kuna wa Chinese wanasoma vitabu, kuna wengine wako just angalia, unaweza ukaangalia ukajua kabisa kwamba society zetu
the foundation is the foundation the parents set by action. Huyo Mchinese ukienda kwao, si ati mzazi yako kwa remote anaambiwa asome. Utapata mzazi probably pia anasoma naye, anasomea kitu fulani, so it's foundational. Huko unaambiwa enda uswali, like your mama amelala ama wazazi wamelala, all of you wake up together. It's modeling. It's what's modeled. So you can't be on your phone go study.
No, ni kweli. So I think, DB, you're bringing up something so important that I think it's simple, but so important that a lot of people have ignored, in the sense that a child, especially during those foundational years, mtoto akiwa mdogo, anywhere 5 and below, that's still a child that you're just supposed to be playing with. But from when ameanza kupata akili sasa, like around between 6 to age 13, 14, hapo, like everything that you do, they will more likely follow what you do than what you say. And that's something that I think is missed out, where certain parents, utakuta tuseme kama mzazi ni mvuta sigara, yeye anajua madhara ya sigara, hataki mtoto wake avute sigara, lakini yuko pale nyuma ya hao anavuta sigara. I tend to look at this even from our family's perspective. I look at, like my group of cousins, our generation, wale ambao wanavuta sigara, and without a fail, mmoja wazazi wao pia alikuwa anavuta sigara. So that's just an example.
Hapo nitaplead the faith.
And it's not in 100% of the cases, but then when you see something,
it is in a lot of cases.
Ata issues kama domestic violence.
It's in a lot of
yeah,
cases.
even drinking, domestic violence.
It's in a lot
so
of cases.
I think for parents, when you get to that age, you already understand, because all human beings have certain negative traits. So when a kid is getting to that age, I think it's important for parents to figure out, what is it that we want to model for our kids.
The only thing I want to say, you said 13, 14. I will tell you it's about 9. It's about when kids in the street become corner boys.
Yeah.
They've done a lot of research. That's when kids start, it's around 8, 9.
Yeah,
but now,
by 13, 14.
Yeah. By 13, 14, hapo peer group influence has fully kicked in.
Yeah,
Let me tell you, in the neighborhood I grew up in,
yeah.
I got my first child when I was 23, 24. When Metelewa, I have a friend who got a child when I was 15.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
17, 18. Ilikuwa CQ2
primer.
based on the siati neighborhood mzima, my crew of independence. Sisi wale who were clubbing at 15, drinking at 15, that crew, right? Iyo crew independence. And unashindwa, how come all of these people, because the people you're hanging around with have normalized some things and there's no one else to be able to be like, hey, hii kitu. Kumbuka, mimi the only thing inanisaidia ni juu nikitoka kwa hii neighborhood, najua kuna life ingine si hii.
Ila hapo, niweke vipi? Unajua, parents wana affect watoto kwa namna mbili. Kwa kile wanafanya mbele yao na kile hawafanyi na hawawaambii.
Yes.
So nitakupa mfano. Mimi nimekulia kwenye seminary, right? Lutheran Junior Seminary. Lakini miongoni mwetu kulikuwa watoto maharibikiwa sana. Na wazazi walikuwa hawafanyi hivi. Lakini hawakuwahi kutuambia side effects za kufanya vile. Tunapokwenda shule, wenzetu wanavuta, mzazi havuti ila hajakwambia kwa nini usivute.
Yeah.
Unajaribu.
Yeah.
Okay? Amna mzazi anamwambia mwanae kwamba sasa uende ukaanze kufanya mapenzi. Ila hamwambii kwa nini usifanye mapenzi.
Yeah.
Akienda kule anakutana na wenzake, wana hela, wana nini, wanamwambia wanavyoenjoy na kila kitu anafanya. Kwa katika parenting kuna mambo mawili. Kuna kila ambacho unakifanya, mtoto anafanya, na kuna kila ambacho humwambii asifanye, anaambiwa na mwenzake
afanye.
Sasa inakuja kwenye ile swala la kwamba mzazi ukiacha gap, ukiweka ombwe, kwa kuna gap pale katika malezi, then nani atajaza? Ndio msali anasema asilelewa na mama, ulelewa na ulimwengu. Okay?
Ulimwengu ni
na
iPad.
hiyo, yes.
Ulimwengu ni iPad.
Sasa hivi ambapo
yes. No, that you see, ulimwengu kitambo was people you could see. So it was a physical fence, seriously. Ukika home, but now,
and it was easy to control.
It was easy to control. Yeah. Now, because of these devices in our homes, in your door, in your everywhere.
Everywhere.
The ulimwengu is in the bedroom. So a child, the ulimwengu is with you, right? And so now, just to say what Nini, one of the things now, so that this ulimwengu, you have to compete with it. How do you compete with it? When we were growing up, we all make jokes. I don't know if it's the same thing in Tanzania. All our parents were number one. You ask yourself.
Correct. Yeah.
Our parents were raising us as if they were perfect people.
Yes.
And they made us feel as if being wrong or making a mistake is kitu haifai ku happen, which is not true, right? If you want to be able to connect with your kids, in my opinion, right? What is fortunate about my misfortune with my dad's situation is I grew up with a really flawed human being. When he was sick, he was sick. But my dad was also very smart. He worked for central bank until they retired him. He was a smart guy. You'd have conversations. So, and there was this thing, you're like, okay, he's sick now. Sometimes he would go drink and things go haywire. But the thing you learn about this whole thing is, one, me for example, mi sinanga ibu. You walk unaenda home at the age of 9, 10 napata fadhako akisida na watoi nje na amevangu ya madhako. Watu wanakuchekelea. So you get used to it. You get kwanza una create mdomo. Mimi ukiniongelesha na kuagana mdomo fast. Ndio
chafu. Mdomo chafu pia.
But then you realize life is flawed. And it's okay. Right? Life is flawed. Because there are people when I'm like, don't worry about this. They're like, no, perfection is an enigma. Utapata unicorn kabla nini. So with your kids, you have to raise them understanding that you always have to try. Your effort, 100% effort is guaranteed if it brings that. Is a great thing, even if it brings an E. Right? 50% effort, even if it gives you a B, is not a good thing. Good, yeah. Right? And you share. So some of the things that I've learned over time is you share. Me, I've struggled with alcohol. I haven't had a drink in 5 years. I fall in the category of an alcoholic, right? And my kids know that because some of my older kids would see me passed out. And we have conversations about it. And my older kids, the one who's 20-something now and the one who's 18, actually even the one who's 16, we've had conversations. I'm like, I used to struggle with this thing. If you choose to drink, that's up to you. Understand that me, your dad, your grandpa, blah, 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 blah. This is like our generation, our family thing. So the minute, you lose control, then you're like, so then they'll ask you questions. Then they have then they even go out and be like, Daddy, and you'll be like, if you want to have a drink, sure, but understand, it's your life. I mean, I tell my kids, it's your life. Because my mom used to tell me that, it's your life. If you go out and get an A, if you come with a D, I'll just celebrate with you. Best thing scenario, maybe ukue mtajiri ununulie kanyumba, or maybe uende uchukue bibi mwingine ukunisahau. It's yours. I'm just... So one of the things in this era, so that your kid can feel free to communicate with you the things they're doing, instead of this snooping. Mnacheza hii nakwambia toi uwezi outsmart mtoi. I don't know what kind of kids you are, but whatever my parents try to do, wakifunga simu unajua kutap.
But kids will always
but tulikuwa hata na duplicate.
But if you and I'll give you a story that this is kind of one of those things that we were young and it stuck. I have a cousin of mine, but unfortunately he passed away. It's called Mwangi. Mwangi, when he was about 7, he used to go to Konso. They used to live in Githurai. They had a flat. Wanaishi hapa chini, wako na shamba kahawa, sukari ya maziwa. When Mwangi alianza kudrive akiwa around 6, 7. So one time the dad has traveled, and Mwangi is driving around. So when the dad comes back, goes to the local, the guys are telling him, hey, wewe unatupitanga na gari hapa, na utusalimi. Then the guy is like, wait a minute, sikukua. So he goes home. He thinks it's the help. Calls them for a meeting. Nyinyi mnaibanga gari, blah, blah, blah. Wanasema msesi, actually, si. Ni kijana. What do you mean ni kijana? So the next day, the dad time when the mom was out, he faked that he was sick and he was about to die. Like, I need to go to hospital. He was confused. Then he just took pillow ya kiti vile alikuwa anachukua, akasema nisaidieni, akakunja, akaweka chini kwa Datsun, akaingia kwa Datsun. Thika road ya kitambo, all the way paka Nairobi hospital. Chwa! Walifika Nairobi hospital hivi, fadhake because wa tall guy akainuka juu vizuri, akaambia ageuza gari na upeleke pole pole. The guy alikuwa anasema hiyo driver alikuwa anafikiria atadai. They drove, wakafika home, akaambia kumbe unajua kupeleka gari. Akasema akaambia okay, juu kuna walikuwa na farm, so walikuwa naenda wanachukua sukari, wanachukua maziwa asubuhi. Akaambia okay, juu unajua unajua kupeleka gari, unataka kupeleka gari. Kutoka kesho asubuhi 4:30 unaamka, wewe ndio utakuwa unaendea maziwa ya asubuhi na ya jioni, sawa? Muda wake akaingia na kalala. Mwangi akaanza kudrive.
Mwangi akapewa job
4:30 akiwa standard 7. Mwangi by form 1 akiwa Strath alikuwa na gari yake na ng'ombe zake kadhaa. Mwangi by the time anamaliza form 4 alikuwa shajenga mjengo yake ya kwanza. Alisoma university. Mkianza hiyo story mkafikia vile atapigwa.
Yes.
Kwetu ungekosha kufa, kwetu ungeshaosha.
Unfortunately, he had his own business, like the way my uncle used to do. Mwangi by the time took form 2, Mwangi was that guy. You go because he now he has money. They used to own a company that used to make weights and measures. Mwangi akifunga shule anaenda na budake nini. So Mwangi atashazo ya kukana wa baba. Mwangi mnaenda nayo. Remember Kinangop, where Kinangop was, kulikuwa na Princess, Mercury, those clubs. So of course mkiwa na mademu mnapeleka Mercury ama Princess ama Spiders. Their beer at the time is like 60, 70, 80. Kinangop inauzwa RRP. RRP ni recommended retail price. Kama ni 32 kwa nini ni 32 hapa. Even Mwangi mtamwambia kule mko amwambie kujeni Kinangop. Mwangi pana. So unacha drink moja huko na kadem kakekunywa red something.
Red stripe.
Red stripe. Kingfisher. Akunywa Kingfisher, unakuja hapa. Mwangi anakuja na boya bia. Mnaambia Mwangi pana si 20 spiders. Anakuambia bia hapa ni how much? Ni 38. Mko mnauziwa how much? 70. Ni nini inafanya mlipe different? Tukae hapa tu. But what I'm trying, this story is not about, it's how my uncle managed that situation and was able to mentor my cousin as he was growing. Ndio alikuwa anampiga maboost. Unataka kufanya nini sasa utabai. I saw that thing and I was like, wow. Now that I think about it, because me, the way I parent is, it's not one, there's that story, there's this story, there's a friend of mine called Wangombe who one day we are sitting, the daughter is 8, mine is 5. Wangombe calls on daughter yake, Daddy, what is circumcision? Nikasema tumeisha. We are finished. We are finished. Wangombe akaambia daughter yake, go bring a hoodie. Go bring one of my hoodies. Ndio akaenda kaleta hoodie bro. Akaambia, okay, you've learned about reproduction, about the penis and the vagina. Akasema, yes. Okay, a man's penis, akaweka hoodie hivi. Akaambia, now when you're born, it has then for health reason, they'll cut this piece, akarol, and then it becomes like that, and that is circumcision. Mtoi akasema, oh, okay, I know. So yeye alikuwa ngwale watu akiambiwa kitu na any other child unajua alikuwa anasema nini? Let me go ask my dad because nyinyi hakuna kitu mnajua my dad. You understand? So you have to find a way to be the authority that even when they Google it, they want to have a conversation with you to have an understanding. To do that, the other side of the bread is to do that. Sometimes you'll hear things or you'll have to answer questions, but this gadget has more information than to make you uncomfortable. And that information is accessible hata ukifanya nini. So you have to figure out what that balance is for you according to your what guardrails you want to put your faith, and knowing that in the end the outcome hata unaweza fanya hizi vitu zote alafu if you have a daughter ama if you hii jangili kuja na tabia mbaya confuse ama if it's a son the other way and vitu zibadilike, that could always happen. That's a risk. Your responsibility is not to worry about the outcome, is to be very intentional about the environment you're creating.
Kuna watoto ambao neno la kwanza I love you analisikia kutoka kwa kijana. Hajawahi kusikia
stories zangu kwa hajawahi hata kwa nyumba yao hajawahi ona.
Bana ngojeni niulize hii mambo ya
I love you unajua?
No, ngoja hii mambo I love you.
Sorry.
And this is where, because now kids are
au ni kwa sababu ya lugha Ali. Kumwambia tu kwamba unampenda, labda nakupenda, nakujali, nakuthaminisha, kumthaminisha mtoto.
Kumthaminisha, yes.
That's what I mean. Sio kwa maana tu kwamba neno lenyewe ukaanza kufikiria.
Yes.
Lakini kumwambia mtoto ajione kwamba ni mzuri, ajione kwamba ana akili sana, ana thamani duniani. Hayo yote ajue kabisa kwamba chochote hata kijana akienda kumwambia anambia, baba ananiambia kila siku.
Okay.
And for the child to understand that they are a priority to you as you are priority to yourself, and explain. I think there's a show you had with Baba Rehema and the other
Rehema and Jide.
And one thing, so this we do this. So you come here, you buy a house in Montgomery County, someone else buys in Harford County, you're driving a nice car, blah blah blah. You've taken your kid to the best school in your area yenyu, so top 10 school, hiyo ndio tunafanya, right? Mnaishi kwa hiyo nyumba. Then mtoto anaenda kumaliza high school. Anamaliza high school anaitwa College Park, ndio? Unaangalia school fees ya College Park. Naangalia mtoto naambia siwende tu community college kidogo.
Montgomery College.
Nani ana save? Wewe ni nini una save? Umeambia mtoto usome, do your best, they've gone to a really good school. Now all of a sudden you want to save. Una save nini? If that is the plan, and it could be part of your plan, I've seen kids, if that is the plan, it should be a plan. So if, for example, if you were to move, say, if life could beat, right? So you downgrade, the kids will automatically downgrade. They won't have a problem. But you cannot be driving hizi gari kubwa mnapeleka alafu unaambia mtoto sina school fees. Then the peers in the environment umemweka wewe mzazi, wanalipiwa college na wakigraduate wanaekewa down payment ya nyumba. Now
plus wanapewa gari.
You have to be careful.
Now
and I've seen it, and I've seen there's an aunt of mine who took the child to shule standard 8 ndio apite. Akampeleka shule standard 5, 6, 7, 8 boarding mali, wanapikiwa mayai, yani so that wasome peke yake. Then kugraduate akapeleka Kenya High a good school, lakini mali anaambiwa oshe nguo. Now it was the era simu zimeingia, so friends zake wako wapi? Broke house. Nairobi International School,
Peponi.
Braeside, Peponi. Anaanza kuuliza, we, mulinipeleka ile shule, my friends are going there. Why are you taking me to this school? Anaambia hakuna pesa. Anasema hakuna pesa. My dad is still drinking. You're still doing this. What do you mean hakuna pesa?
But DB, Apple, I'll pull back kidogo. I'll challenge you a bit.
The environment you create, the environment you create is your responsibility to deal with. And you have to think about that environment long term. Si hapa peke yake.
Yeah. Now you see, okay, there has to be a balance between and yes, kama vile Bandiwa amesema, it's important for the child to know their worth and everything, but then this child also, it's also very important to know that there'll be rejection, and if they're getting their first rejection when they go outside the home,
okay,
that is also very dangerous.
Umezungumzia what they need to know, how. Parenting inakuja hapo. It's the parent's responsibility kumwambia kwamba there is a rejection.
Not just kumwambia, kumwonyesha.
Yes.
You know, kuna time unasema no, nataka kwenda hii college ambayo inalipa $80,000 in a year. No, you're going to this one that's $30,000.
But what was the plan?
So
question, what was the plan? If the plan was,
pay attention to what I'm trying to say. I think, you know, like part of the challenge that we're experiencing, you know, like our generation, you know, like raising kids, is also showing the kids that whatever your peers are getting, you also deserve it. Now, someone may be going to a public school in Montgomery County with Jake, Heather, and Amber. So these are people who have trust funds. Of course, the kid is not going to know. These are people who have trust funds. They're in a different situation in life. Most immigrant parents cannot afford, especially college zamani ilikuwa a bit cheaper. Right now, college, we are talking about, some schools, we are talking about $40,000 a year. We are talking about $50,000 a year. So I think, to what you're saying, I think it's important to let your kids know early enough.
So
it's important to let them know early enough that
it's your corrective action.
Yeah, it's your corrective action.
Okay.
You know, I know you're going to you know, like Winston Churchill High School in Bethesda or Bethesda Chevy Chase, where there's a lot of rich kids, but you let them know that hii ndio hali yetu. You let them know that this is our situation. I am a first generation immigrant. We cannot do this. The idea of just letting things go and making them believe that they can make the same decisions or live the same lifestyle like Heather and Amber.
That
is a problem.
No. I didn't say. I have to. What I was pointing to is in that, and these are the variables of the environment you've created.
Yes,
you've created.
Yes.
So you have to address them.
Yeah.
Not reactive, proactive. Yes.
Proactive, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'll give you, like, my son, he wants to be a lawyer. So we're talking about it, like, hey, so high school, he's like, hey, he's like, hey, he wants to go like Georgetown or I don't know where for undergrad. I'm like, why? And we have a conversation. I'm like, okay,
they have
so
great law schools.
And then I was like, not law school, undergrad, before law school. So, you know, you have to do your first degree.
So he wants to go to Georgetown law school, but Georgetown undergrad.
And we have a conversation.
Okay,
and so we have a conversation.
80,000.
No, it's not about money.
Yeah.
I asked him a very simple, because my son he's been watching like Obama speeches and Kenyatta speeches and Mandela speeches since he was like 10, 9. If I want to know what's really going on politically, that's a guy we call, like, hey, so what's going on? The guy will break things down to you.
Wikipedia familiar.
That's him. So I asked him, okay, so what do you want to do? So he wants to be like a policy type lawyer, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good. So then I asked him, let me ask you a question. Where did Obama go where did Obama get his bachelor's from? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, that's how irrelevant that bachelor's is. If you want to be a lawyer, go somewhere, get your bachelor's, save some money, and then now you can go to Harvard or this school. Like, makes sense.
You
see, but we're not doing it. We did when he was like in 9th grade or 10th. Right? Then there's conversation around, people are telling you know, you should do healthcare, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, Daddy, all these people are telling me to do healthcare, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, cool. But why do you want to be a lawyer? And like, I'm like, let me tell you one simple thing in life. If you're ever unsure, other people will make a decision for you. So the next time someone asks you that question, you should say, Why? Which school? What you see? Blah, blah, blah. Always be the most prepared person in the room when it comes to your life.
Your life. Yep.
Your life, it's yours, right? So, and you try it. When an adult asks you, so what are you going to do? And you give them blah, 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 blah. They'll be like, oh, okay. Because they have nothing. But if you go, they'll fill it out for you, right? So it's to be able to have... Exactly. Yeah. So now, see, I understand the environment that we're in. But we're not... The thing about... One thing is saying that we can't do because we don't have. Having is a very...
subjective.
Not even subjective. You cannot have and you can have. That musema
my friend, unaweza usiwe na hela ukakamatwa na polisi hapo.
Yes, the limiting thing should not be you have or you don't have, because if it's really important we will find.
Yes,
correct.
It's how you can stretch yourself
right?
to get it.
If it's really important we will find, and if it's not as important there are other priorities, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the issue is to tackle what is the underlying reason, what is the nini. So why are we not paying 80,000? Why are we paying 100? Because if you're a billionaire you pay the 80.
And I think Ali,
why are we not paying this 80? So and if it's really important, then we'll figure out how to get scholarships, blah, blah, blah. But to be able to have those conversations at that level, right? Not to say, Mimi, by the way, I went to Jammu and I was in a day school, blah, blah, blah. Because
Naniko high.
So why are you... So what you do, you create a disconnect because you live in two very different worlds.
Yes,
so it's to be able to create hizo opportunities such that akienda akigoogle you're part of unaincludiwa kwa hiyo conversation.
So nafikiri kwenye conversation actually huwa naambia hata kazini kwangu unapokuwa na conversation na watu wana report. Kwanza ukweli kwanza niseme hii kwa sababu wanapenda kutumia. Ukweli ni ukweli. Athari zake zitategemea umesema lini, umesema vipi, umesema wapi, umetumia tone gani, ulisema nini kabla na utasema nini baada. The fact kwamba unataka mtoto asiende kwenye university hii, unataka aende university nyingine, kama unamwambia wakati anaanza kuregister, ni tofauti na kama mngekuwa na conversation 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
No, that's true.
Na ndio ambapo tunarudi pale kwenye swala zima la parenting, kwamba kuna ile gap ya nini umefanya na nini ambacho hujafanya. Kwa hiyo upo wakati ambao I think conversation and parenting wakati mwingine nafikiri tunailaumu kuliko uhalisia. Actually, my next, I think maybe this coming, not tomorrow, maybe coming Saturday baada hapo. My regular show will be about parenting. Now the question is, kwa nini watu wenye hela, watoto wao wana upweke, wako lonely na shida kama watu wasio na hela? Yani mtu aliye maskini, anamchukua mtoto wake mdogo, and I'm telling this is real, right? Anamnywesha pombe ili alale, ili yeye akalime. Mtu mwenye hela, anaamka asubuhi, anamchukua mtoto na anampeleka kwa daycare. Wote hawapati nafasi ya kuwa na parents for very different reasons. Huyu mwingine ni kwa sababu ya pesa nyingi, mwingine hana. It's the same thing. Hata sasa hivi unakuta challenge. Yes, kuna challenge. Sasa hivi utakuta watoto wengi, hii issue ya social media is kids are suffering from abundance.
Abundance, too much abundance.
Yes, changamoto leo sasa hivi ni abundance. Yani ana simu, ana tablet, ana nini na anataka vyote na TV na amekaa. Okay.
Na amepewa.
Yes.
Amejununuliwa.
No,
amepewa vyote.
Na hivyo vinakuja ambapo mzazi ana kazi au ana hela ana nini, anampa kama substitution ya wakati wake, substitution ya mwongozo wake. Kana hivi usinisumbue. Zamani ulikuwa unaambiwa toka naenda mkacheze. Mlikuwa mnafanya vitu vingine ambavyo vilikuwa vina socialize. Sasa tumeingia katika era ambayo unfortunately these gadgets na teknolojia inatutenganisha tukifikiri inatuunganisha.
No,
big time.
And then the other thing, before I lose my train of thought, is part of the environment is the people you surround your kids with. See,
very important.
Some of these things you have to recreate them. See, okay, even when I grew up, hata tukivuta fegi when we were younger, you'd have to hide. You utapigwa na anyone. You understand? There was a community. Now, not to say kupigwa ni poa, but there was a way you knew the community was looking at you, right? And there are conversations sometimes that I can have with my son that one of my good friends who they are close with, they'll have that conversation in a way better form than it will happen. I remember when my son wanted to quit football, it's my friend Maganda who went to talk to the coach. Because I was like, Maganda, like, go see what this thing is, because this boy is not talking to me. And they had a conversation, and I learned there was something going on that my son didn't want, blah, blah, blah. Because you try, and I'm not saying this to say that I'm doing everything the way I think I should do. It's always a work in progress. But one of the things I've learned is just surrounding the godparents, being able to create this community. And that's why sometimes utaona hata unaona mtu saa ingine unampata kwa group ya church for example. Unasema jamaa anaendaga church, but there's value in surrounding. I was telling someone there's value in surrounding your kids around other people with similar values. The same thing that happened to you when you're going to madrasa. And it doesn't matter what the value system is. Because if I know my kid when they go out, they're hanging out with your kids, I have a rough idea what the general upbringing is. So I have a general idea what the variables are, right? And hata ndio unakumbuka your parents would be like unaenda kwa kina nani usikule huko. Kwa kina nani ni sawa. Because it's active parenting.
Even realize that
active parenting, right? Who do you put around? What do they see? And then being able to explain, even sometimes some really I've had to deal with some really, really tough questions and tough conversations. But in my favor, and there's someone who told me, hey, Domboloma, there's 6 kids. How do you do it? I told them, how many kids do you have? He's like, I have 3 kids. I'm like, okay, you and your wife and 3 kids? I'm like, you ndio shida yako. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's me, 3 kids, but we are 5 parents in total. So there are 3 other mothers. So ratio ya child to parent it's better than yours. What I'm trying to say is I have kids with other women, and the mothers of my children, Mama Lisa, Mama Zadi, Mama Joshua, and Jaya, are very supportive in this whole approach of, one, open communication within the parents. We don't have to be together, but we always communicate, because we're talking about gadgets, but part of the reason why these gadgets exist is because we have a situation where they're mostly single parents household, where the parent is also trying to work. The parent is also trying to raise their children. So de facto, the gadgets come in, and siko ubaya anaweza taka, right? So in the situations where parents can be active, even when they're not together, right? It goes to this whole foundational thing we're saying about intentional parenting. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that, right? That yes, I try as much as I can, but there's a team. There's a team that if all my kids are here in the US, they move together. They're either in Helen's house, they're either in Wangare's house, they're either in Sheila's house, and when they're in Kenya, they're in Karo's house. Like, without having a very, like, there's a general understanding that the well-being of all the kids is important to us. So work on me, like I come from a big family. So the fact that I have siblings, to me, is very important. Mi naambiaga watu, your wife ule umechagua, ama your spouse ule umechagua, your mother kama yuko, and your siblings are your last line of defense. Not your first line, your last line of defense. If something was to happen to you now, Ali, ni sisi hapa tutakushughulikia.
Yes.
Ukiugua sana, tunakurudisha kwenyu. Kama bibi yako anakupenda, atakaa ama aende. Then it's your mother or your siblings. That's it. Your family. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Last line, not first line. First line ni mabeste, nini tutaingia WhatsApp, 50 so hapa. Hiyo so itakuja mara 3. You understand?
Yeah.
So to be able to have, for my kids, all 6 kids have each other as siblings is very important as part of the support system I'd like to create for them. And I have to acknowledge that the parents, so ndio nikiongea na watu wanasema, oh my baby daddy, oh my baby mommy, I'm like, I wish you can get to a place where adult problems can stop being child problems, and you can acknowledge you and I, A, B, C, D, but for the best for these children, let's try A, let's try B. Now, I know it's not always possible, and that's why I say I've been lucky in that way. Okay. But I think when grown-ups put some differences aside to be able to address this,
for the better of the kids.
Uwezi sema hizi gadgets hawezi zi-isolate na hii situation nyingine tumemention.
Yes. Right? Yeah. Now, Bandio.
If you just join us, this is One Mic Show, please. And the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. The line is okay. Kuna mtu alikuwa anasema kwamba line inasumbua hapa, lakini line iko sawa hivi sasa. So please call, alafu tuone Ali watu wanasema nini kwa comments.
So again, the number is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Now hapa let me see Roslyn anasema one other thing that saved us is the one single TV in the living room. Remember watching last program on KBC, aka Derek. And then I don't think Derek was last program. Last program ilikuwa ingine ilikuwa inaitwa Dallas, but story another day.
It depends on which generation you are, my
so,
friend. Which day of the week you are watching.
So yeah, kulikuwa na ile ya kufunga kituo. And then
sasa, wait. Sio last program ya TV. Maybe familia. Ikifika baada hiyo program, you have to go to sleep.
Okay, maybe that's
but
the case.
The way we knew last program, it was the last
program.
It was actually
kabla ya kufunga
that's what they
kituo.
actually called it last. Hiyo ndio kufungwa. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
okay.
Kwa sababu sisi baada ya taarifa ya habari, sisi for us last program ilikuwa taarifa ya habari, mkakojoe mlale.
So you need
saa mbili na kitu.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, labda ataeleza last program ilikuwa inamaanisha kwamba last program ya broadcast au last program ya familia kuangalia.
And then Mrs. G hapa anasema the ulimwengu in the iPad can also be managed. Just enable parental controls on your child's device, and these controls sometimes they know how to circumvent them. And then hapa Bakora 965 anasema Zidane was watching his kid in AFCON for Algeria. Many guys have mentored their kids. And then Rose anasema this I love you maneno affects the girl child a lot, and please don't be a broke dad. And then DJ Chef Gats anasema watoi wapelekwe jeshi, reality check haraka pap. And then hapa Wakiloski anasema Kiswahili sanifu kuchanganya DJ. And then hapa pia Facebook, there were a lot of comments that were coming in also on Facebook. Zingine zilikuwa zimetupita hapa, I can see
zelete zote.
Sally Jones anasema
wacha nianze kuongea na Kiswahili ndio watu wajue pia mimi naelewa hii Oswahili.
Sally Jones anasema memories, mugomano na kinangop na jukebox before we go to other places. And then Kibui Bata anasema you have to share information with them, and the more you make it a big deal, the more you make a big deal out of it, the more curious they are. Now Kibui anasema
just
facts
like
Dobolo.
We knew this.
Ongeza sauti for those in the back. You can't, you can't be flossing, then tell the kids to kaza the belt. And then Washeke anasema we fail our kids by not being candid, by not having candid conversations about finances, so they can set proper expectations. And then hapa Filaruma anamwambia Omosh aongee Kiswahili sanifu tusikie. Mike wanted to say something. Mike twende kazi.
No, I was gonna buttress a point that Dombolo had shared. Like when, you remember how we used to say you're there to be said, not to be heard. But kids can and sometimes take a lot of cues from what you do. So somebody has just mentioned about Zinedine Zidane watching his son. Tuni kumaanisha huyo kijana alianza kwa na baba yake ama alikuwa anaenda na baba yake kwa training camp pengine akiwa 2, 3, 4 anakuwa ball boy, anaona baba yake, anaona video, anataka kuwa kama baba yake. So there's an influence that that parents have can instill in something. You cannot really try to instill anything at 15 or at 13. And I think Dombolo also mentioned that because some studies say you need to make sure that you mold your child between 7 and 9 hapo katikati. Because after that, then you're really trying to do a catch-up game.
Okay, now what are we saying to those who missed that? Unajua, the problem tuko nayo, na hii ilianza, nitakupa mfano, wakati HIV inaingia, right? Wakati ama niseme inashika kasi, kwenye 80s kule, tulikuwa tuna parents ambao walikuwa wanaongea na mtoto, namwambia ukifanya tu mapenzi unapata.
Yeah, this is the
ukifanya tu mapenzi umepata. Na mimba is the same thing, right?
There's a video ya Fili Bongo retire.
Today's me. Yeah. The issue is ikitokea anko amepata, unaweza kuambia lakini sio mwisho wa maisha, bado anaweza live a little longer. Sasa mtoto anakuwa confused. Wewe uliambiwa kwamba ukipata hii unakufa. Leo hii mjomba au mama mdogo au nani amepata, like bado unaweza ukaishi kwa matumaini. Which is which? Unajua? Kwa hiyo yes, kuna watu ambao sasa hivi unapata hii conversation kwa mara ya kwanza na mtoto yuko 14, 16. Anafanya nini? Aache kaende ama kuna kitu ambacho unaweza ukafanya, kwa sababu unasema kilicho chako kitavunda huku unaendelea kukitibu.
Well, all is not lost. You adjust.
Na unajua bandio, like, and back to what DB was saying, one thing that actually shook me, because we all have these devices, we're all addicted to them to a certain level. But when I came to learn, like some of these CEOs who are, the CEOs of these companies that make these devices, when I came to learn that they're keeping these devices away from their kids, it means there's something
or
that
limiting.
They know. It means there's
Really
something that they know that I think we don't know. And actually most parents don't know.
That's almost in everything. So unaona hata kwenye siasa, unajua umesha kuona mtoto wa rais anaandamana?
No, but bandio tukiangalia unajua maandamano this thing is marketed as a good thing. It's a positive thing. Yeah. Kitu kama maandamano
amekwambia hapa Dombolo hakuna slice ya mkate na upande mmoja.
No, but you have to pay attention. Remember, hakuna slice ya mkate iko na upande mmoja, lakini like with kids their brains are not fully developed. Now, and I think we also don't appreciate it because we did not have this as kids. So I think there's a problem. First of all, when it comes to contact, for example, kuna vitu vingi vimekuwa normalized ambazo kwamba no matter how progressive you are, I will always say it is we're in a very precarious place when abnormal things are starting to be normalized. And this happens with slow by slow conditioning. And I'll give an example, like maybe people may say one or two things, but for example, the idea of I'm a boy, but I decided that now I want to be a girl. This thing is now being discussed like it's a normal thing.
Okay.
And you see, Sasa, we are not understanding why, like kuna certain things, because yes, there are things that have some relativity, but then there are certain things you're like, okay, how far is this gonna go? I'll tell you another thing that becomes very problematic when you start having early contact: sexual content. Remember, these kids who are accessing, these gadgets, whether it's in a limited sense or freely, they're coming into contact with sexual content very early.
So
and that's starting to have an impact that I think we either want to downplay or pretend.
So before I lose my train of thought hapa, kuna kitu kimoja. As a parent, kitu kingine pia that we have to also take responsibility is just to know where do they get that information. Wana consume kutoka kwa nani? Hiyo swala la kwamba this is so smart, hujai kusikia kutoka kwa CEO, utakuwa unasikia kutoka kwa nani? Mtu wa marketing. Hawa ambao wanakuambia kwamba all new 2026 Subaru Outback, utafikiri magari yako juu, matairi yako juu. Kila kitu almost kiko vile vile. Lakini bado anakuaminisha. Nenda kwenye madawa. Anasimama mtu na koti, take this one here, will make you a little bigger. Alafu pale chini kuna maandishi madogo anasema kwamba haijawa approved na FDA. So lazima uangalie kwamba hizo information pia anaziconsume kutoka kwa nani. Ndio amefika sehemu ambayo DB amesema kwamba mtu ajue kwamba kama kuna any doubt, mahali pa kwenda kuconfirm taarifa ni wapi? Ni kwa mzazi. Lakini unapomwacha marketing, mtu wa marketing ndio a control eti hii device ni nzuri ama mbaya. No, ukweli uko pale pale kwamba unajua wanasema kwamba kadri unavyozidi kupanda, risk ya maumivu ni kubwa kama utadondoka. Okay? Na sisi tuna consume vitu ambavyo hatujajiandaa. Achilia mbali hapa kuna nafuu. Nenda Afrika ambapo watu hawajaandaliwa hata kuingia kwenye crypto, lakini unaona mtu anafanya nini? Anataka kuingia kwa sababu ya mtu wa marketing, na hata hajasoma crypto yenyewe kwa vipi, hajasoma matumizi halisi ya ni athari gani. Kuna kipindi kwa kuzungumza kuhusu TikTok na namna ambavyo ilikuwa ina feed baadhi ya vitu, tabia ambazo zilikuwa mbaya, si ndio? Lakini watu, mzazi haangalii. Sisi tuko naambiwa kwamba katika movie hizi zinazotafsiriwa, ukienda Tanzania, Kenya, kuna hizi movies siku za sijui wa Filipino, sijui wa nini, zinatafsiriwa kwa Kiswahili na kwa lugha nyingine. Yeah, ilifika stage wanasema kwamba actually katika zile characters ambazo zina utu zaidi, most of zinakuwa pia ni za magay, lesbian. Lakini hata watu ambao walitakiwa sasa wa maadili wa kusema kwamba hizi hapana. Kwa hiyo unaacha sasa watoto waanze kupata kwamba kumbe watu wa hivi ndio wana moyo, ndio wanaanza kuamini kwamba hata kama wanasema vibaya, lakini kwenye movie nzima ndio peke yake ambaye ana moyo mzuri. Kwa hiyo mimi my point ni kwamba yes, hizi gadgets sio nzuri, sawa, lakini wale wanaozitengeneza wao wenyewe wanajua sio nzuri, lakini sio wanaotuambia. Sisi tunaambiwa na mtu wa marketing, na kazi yake ni nini? Ni kuuza, ni namba. Kwa swali narudi pale pale, as a parent, mwanao anamsikiliza nani? Mwanao anamwamini nani? Mwanao yuko kwenye cycle gani? Asiyefunzwa na mamaye anafunzwa na ulimwengu. Ukiacha ile gap, ukiweka hiyo ombwe.
So let me sometimes when we have these discussions, I look back to see what else has a similar pattern, right? So technology is one of those things that fundamentally, so if you look at, say, for example, if you go to Costco, right, you're looking for a deal and to buy wholesale. Costco doesn't put up signs, so they gamify how you walk. You have to walk around the whole store so you can buy more. Yeah. But ideally, they're trying to sell more so that they can sell it cheaper for value. You're trying to get value and more things. So you're kind of aligned in that way. And most traditional businesses are that way. Technology is now what has presented these businesses where the person providing the technology, what they want is directly opposite to yours. I'll use something different for grown-ups. The dating apps, Tinder, Bumble, whatever. You, the grown-up, wants to go to this dating app to find love. And ideally, if it was to work very well, it would mean you go to Tinder once or twice. You find the love of your life. You jump off the app and you go live your life.
Life of your life, right?
But what Tinder, that's what you want, right?
Yeah.
But Tinder, what they want is directly opposite.
Repeat.
To what you want. They want you to keep coming back. This is grown-ups, not kids. Consistently coming back.
Attention,
right?
yeah.
So yao kitu hao wanataka kukuhuku kaya hapa usipate love, wewe umekuja hapa kutafuta love. So to understand that most technology is like that, because how they make value is by you being on technology. So when we're saying it's addictive to kids, not only kids, so grown-ups too.
Grown-ups too, yeah.
Right? So once you understand that dynamic, then you have to be like, so how do you balance this dynamic? How are you able to use this tool? Because you understand that the game they're playing and the game you're playing, rules in it different. The only other thing I just wanted to, when I look back, I'm like, there's a word you use, you said we're in an era of abundance, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about the world, pretty much, around, prohibition in the US or right about 30s, obese people were rare. Very rare, everywhere in the world, pretty much. Obese people now are everywhere, right? Because we're in the era of what? Abundance. What has that done? That means that people live longer. They're also living diseased longer. Pharmaceutical companies are making more money so that people can live longer. People are living longer now than they lived then.
Correct.
So
unhealthy.
I'm just realistically, these things we are panicking about now, in 2 generations, there'll be other problems. They'll have created medicine for what we are calling lack of attention, blah, 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 and they'll have moved on to. So when people worry about the future, I say worry about your children's future in the immediate, the long term. That one, what they're going to be dealing with, what their generation is going to be dealing with, what their kids are going to be dealing with is something you have probably no idea about. What my parents worried about when there was payphone, rotary phones, and tulikuwa tuna tap simu, what they worried about, they had no idea there would be cell phones. That this gadget called a phone is no longer a phone. It's an access to all things. And the next, that's going to keep happening, right? So sometimes when you talk about the future, I say, ndio ongea about future, angalia mbele kidogo. But future yako ni immediate, because kuna vitu utaweza kucontrol, so it's those foundational things, so that by the time Ali, for example, maybe a generation ago, someone who grew up in your same background, anaenda Vegas, kona rugby. Not because there's anything wrong with it. It's just because going huko kushout, kucheer, afanye kitu aende kitu more religious, right? Yeah. But over time, it's not necessarily, so as we look at these things, and the reason I'm saying this is the future is the future. It's very different. It's unknown. Let's not panic. Let's be present. That's the point I'm trying to make.
But I think I'm going to disagree with you there. I think it is very important to think about the future. And this, I think, is where there's a difference between sasa,
define the future kwanza.
No, the future ni siku za usoni,
how far?
I'm talking about watoto wako na watoto wako pia. The reason why I'm saying that is because sisi wa Afrika are the ones who are sometimes conditioned pambana na hali yako saizi. While a lot of other groups are actually sitting and thinking, 30 years down the line, 40 years down the line. And that's the reason why, you find that there's some communities where they're doing well, because 40 years ago, there was someone who did not know what's going to be happening now, but they were concerned about kuna certain basics where they were concerned about how do we, how do we make this situation better? Like, unajua, one of the biggest issues that we have today that we pretend is not an issue is, first of all, the easy availability of sexual content for kids. And this, if you talk to any expert, they will tell you that it does have, an impact. There's very easy content. And then, there was some podcasters from South Africa. South Africa, I think, is in a very bad place when it comes, casual sex is kind of like,
True.
It's kind of like, let's go out and have lunch together. Like, that's just how
Super normalized.
It's very normalized. It's abnormal, like if you don't do it. And these are things
More than the hippie era in the US?
these are the things that have,
I don't know if there's a way we can compare, because statistics hapo ndio sasa zinaweza kuwa
and you see
zinapotea.
in the hippie era, the people from the hippie era,
Ukimwi ndio slow down
yeah, no, hiyo hippie era,
Yeah, but
Ukimwi
data.
comics, what the Western world, how the Western world would be dealing with sex now is very different if you compare to how the 60s ilikuwa imekuja into the
no,
70s.
lakini ndo nasema hata hiyo the hippie era, like ndio weka ukimwi, because ukimwi ilikuja in the 80s, but the one thing that I see sometimes wazungu's doing, and they sometimes move back and forth on what values are, like that's how they've been, like for a long time. But then there's always concern about the next generation, which I think is very important for us to. And I know it's easier to think about the immediate and the now, but the reason why Heather and Amber can think about going to Georgetown. Ngoja kidogo.
I need to qualify.
The reason why Heather and Amber can talk about, like going to a ridiculous school. Now sometimes utakuta Budao is someone maybe who's working a job that's maybe 120K, not even a crazy job, but they can do that, is because there was a grandfather somewhere. And I'm not talking about only money. Because money is one thing, and money is an easy thing if you already come from money. But I'm talking about, I'm talking about certain values and the normalization of abnormal things. I think we're looking at it today because in the environment that we live in, we've been made to believe that your personal comfort and the immediate comfort of the people surrounding you are the only important thing, and do not be concerned about anything else. Which is why we have societies, especially in a place like Africa, a place kama Kenya, let's say for example, utakuta kuna watu wanakuambia, mazee Kenya yani mazee, it's the best place ever. Like you go there, uko na chapa zako ni sawa. But the people who are enjoying this best life is a very small segment. True. Because of hiyo hapo tumewekwa in such a way whereby tunafika point where hata mtu anakaa na anasema mimi kama watoto wangu wako sawa, hata nikiona ule mwenzangu anatumbukia shimoni ni shauri yake. Which is why I really admire those days when a neighbor could come and see you doing some stupid shenanigans na ana deal na wewe hapo hapo.
Okay.
So I think when we look back, we should not look back at as everything being, not everything was good, but also not everything was bad.
So mimi na swali hapo Ali.
Yeah.
Mimi na swali kwa crew nzima hapa.
Yeah.
Hii issue ya malezi na gadget na nini, is it generational ama unaiona ni kitu ya ni kitu ya rangi, kwa maana ya kwamba ni nini, kwa maana ya kwamba unafikiri labda Waisraeli wanafanya vizuri kuliko, ama tuseme Wahindi wanafanya vizuri, au Waasia wanafanya vizuri kuliko wazungu, kuliko Waafrika? Wewe unafikiri hii ni kitu ambayo ni ya kijamii ama ni ya kiumri, au kuna kitu ambacho
kufanya vizuri?
I'm just saying kwamba
kifedha ama
no. Issues za malezi, kwa mfano kwamba kuna community fulani ama kuna watu aina fulani. Tumesikia hapa kwamba maybe tulipokuwa tunakuwa, this means like our generation, if there's such a thing, tulilelewa hivi. Umetoka kuzungumza hapa kwamba kipindi kile mtoto ni mtoto wa kijiji, right? Unakutwa unaadhibiwa, so kwangu mimi ukiangalia faida, pro and cons za kilichokuwa kipindi kile na sasa hivi, unaona kwamba are we better now than then, au unafikiri tuko hapa na hizi shida za gadgets because that thing is not there anymore, au gadgets zingekuwepo kipindi kile bado tungekuwa vile vile? Unafikiri hii issue ni issue ya nini, kwamba Waafrika wameathirika sana kuliko labda wazungu ama kuliko wa Asia, kitu kama
hold on. Let me there's something I needed to qualify first. When I say now and qualify now and the future. Now, before I lose that train of thought. So if you want to get an A in school, right? If you want to leave KCSU talking an A is not a flat, right? So that's 4 years from now, right? How you get that A though is not in the future. It's in what you do today and today. Every day you wake up. This is maybe because I'm an alcoholic. So there's the whole thing of you just need to win today, and then today determines tomorrow, right? And there's the whole thing of changing the things you can change, accepting the things that you cannot change, and knowing the difference. The reason I say that is there are a lot of people who you focus on the future. For example, if I want to get to Kenya tomorrow, right? What do I do today? I buy the ticket and get on a plane today. To get there when? Tomorrow. And so what you do today very much influences what you do tomorrow. So you kind of have to see to be like the future, but the decision you make every day is what guarantees where you end up. Kutaka A, hautaipata if the decision you make every day ukiamka. That's why I keep saying intentional parenting, intentional relationship. I mean, my wife is here in the studio and I tell my wife, we're listening to this podcast. And so people were saying, us guys, we never talk about divorce. Life is for the future, blah, blah, blah. And we had this conversation. I told her the relationship is today. Because if we take care of today, if I wake up today thinking about you thinking about me, the best that we can do for each other today, tomorrow imejipanga. And we will keep doing that thing. The future, tutajipata huko living a life bado tuko pamoja because hatuangalii huko sana tunasahau hapa. And sometimes what we do is like, the future, but today and tomorrow. If you want that community, ni kama kuingia kwa basi. So how are you going to be a part of the community? To be a part of the community, kama sasa for example, kwa mfano, unataka watoto wako wa grow up similar to the way that you grew up, right? What do you do today? You take them to madrasa. And tomorrow, they go to madrasa. And then the next day, they go to madrasa. Then you keep them in environments that are similar to what you want. So that it has a compounding effect. Sometimes when people say the future, it's this thing that's an enigma. But today influences tomorrow. So yes, it's that thing of, yes, you see the future. Yes, you want that kind of future. But if we're talking about our kids, you have to, your impact in answer in what happens daily. The small compounding interest thing. Now, hiyo kitu yo kusema ni generational, you muuliza
or demographic.
There's some demographics, right, that are disadvantaged. Wacha tuonge tu immigrants generally, because our primary reason to be economic refugees or to be in the West, most of us, is to earn a living, because almost all of us have made many mouths more than our immediate family. Kuna watu home. So you find that tukifika huku, the need ndio unataka kulea na unataka kuearn. Actually,
especially first generation.
So actually the most challenging time for most parents, even two household, not even single, even two household families, is when the child gets to about 10, 11, when they do no longer need a babysitter. The parent disappears. Because sasa unaweza achiwa sandwich na nini, afanye double, akiingia umeenda shule, ukirudi ameenda double. So now as this problem compounds, it's a daily, inaenda compound to such, akikuja kuna gadget, shikai hongwa na gadget na ikivia
na minta 30 minutes niende kazini.
So demographically ukicompare hiyo, look, angalia nini, Winter Olympics zimeisha juzi tu. So you come and you watch. I ski. Omosh and I used to go ski. We haven't done it.
Whoa.
Hey, what's going on now?
We used to go ski. We used to go
on ski dates.
When my youngest was about, when she was about 5 to when she was about 12, we used to go ski every season.
Mkiwa mmesimama umekaa.
We would ski.
Unajua kuna saa zingine nyi watu mnaangalia na mtu mnafikiri ni mtu.
Hiyo naomba nione video.
So
in fact we probably even have videos.
Yes, I need a video.
Let me tell you something. If you watch the Winter Olympics, you will notice there's one race that's there. And if you watch primarily. And if you watch in the stands, almost always both parents are there.
Yep.
Yes. So
So I saw an article somewhere with being the rich kids Olympic or something like that. Now, ukiuliza demographics, they come into play in a household where you have more time per parent to a child. There is more intentionality.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the reason I asked that is just I wanted not only to put blame kwa wazazi, but to put understanding too. If you're a first generation, you don't get that 9 to 5. You know, sometimes you work 2 jobs. Uko kwenye ile ya $10 an hour. Unakwenda unarudi, mtoto amefika nyumbani. You know, you're like, have this because I need 2 hours to sleep. Unampatia, na wakati mwingine mazingira yanalazimisha. Na ndio maana nimeuliza ili tuweke pande zote. Yes, wazazi wanakosea, but at the same time mazingira yanawafanya vipi? Kwa sababu hapa tunatambua first generation ni kama kuwa katapila. Unajenga barabara, alafu barabara ishakuwa nzuri, unaambia usipite.
Na bandio, tuangalie ni kwa nini haya mazingira yameharibika. Na kunao immigrants wengine, wahamiaji wengine tofauti ambao kwamba wamekuja hapa hivyo first generation, lakini hali yao ni tofauti.
Okay, Aliwa umekuja hapa na mimi nafikiri tumekuja almost miaka sawa.
Almost the same time.
Tumekuja almost the same time.
Yes.
Mimi mtu niliyekuja kuishi naye hapa niliona picha yake nikiwa airport naondoka. Mfukoni nilikuwa na $100 hizi.
Yes.
Okay? So fikiria mtu ambaye unakuja kuishi naye for the first time, unaona kwamba ni nani na upewi picha, unatakiwa uikariri airport. Na unakuja huku. Kuna mtu mwingine amekuja hapa kama wewe, lakini amekuja na anko au amekuja na mtu ambaye baba yake mdogo yuko hapa. Kuna support system, hilo jambo la kwanza. Ukifika hapa, alafu umefika hapa pia unauelewa gani kuhusiana na Marekani yenyewe? Kuna watu wako Tanzania wanajua Marekani kuliko sisi. Akifika hapa angalau ana ile idea. Kuna ile ukifika hapa anachokuambia yule mtu ambaye yuko hapa illegally na kazi yake ni dereva sijui wa kitu gani, anakuambia haya ndio maisha. The reality is kijijini kwenu ndio ana nyumba kubwa. Sawa? Kwa hiyo ina maana utafuata kile anachofanya anachokifanya. Kwa hiyo kuna support system ya mtu. Yes, kuna watu ambao wamekuja hapa few years ago na wana maisha mazuri kulingana na tafsiri yako ya uzuri wa maisha ama mafanikio. Lakini swali ni kwamba wamelend vipi, wametokea vipi? Sasa kuna namna ambavyo wazazi wanakuja. Kuna community ambayo wanakuwa nayo. Na kile ambacho kinatokea hapa. Kuna watu wanakuja na watoto, watu wengine wanakuja peke yake. Kuna mwingine anatangulia hapa, kuna watu wako hapa wamekuja na sponsor, walikuwa na pen pals, wale friends wamekuwepo kwa miaka mingi, walishaelezwa na mambo kama haya. Wengine wamekuja na hela, wengine wametua hapa nothing. Unaanza kutafuta na kila kitu. Kwa hiyo kuna situation zaidi ya moja. Ndio maana nakwambia mimi nimeshaona mzazi ambaye anampa mwanae pombe ili alale, tena anamnyosha gongo ile ili mtoto alale yeye aweze kulima, kwa sababu asipofanya hivyo hawali.
Na unajua hii kusambaratika kwa hali ya watu wengi ambao wana asili ya Kiafrika ni kwa sababu tulikimbia Uafrika wetu, kwa sababu ukiangalia
na tufiki uzungu wao. Tulikimbia Uafrika na tufiki uzungu. Na ndio maana nakwambia kwamba hii ni kama kula muhogo. Unajua? Muhogo ukiwa mbichi utaula, hautaumwa tumbo. Ukiupika ukaiva utaula, hautaumwa tumbo. Ukiupika ukawa katikati, sio mbichi na haujaiva, ukiula utaharisha. Sisi tunauacha Uafrika, atufiki uzungu, tuko hapo katikati. Mtoto akizaliwa tunaanza kufikiria tumwache aongee Kiingereza au nimwache tu aanze kuongea Kiswahili. Ale hiki au afanye hivi. Matokeo yake tunajikuta tuna lose identity. Tunajipoteza kwenye harakati za kujitafuta.
Huku hauko na huku hauko.
Yes.
Sasa si unaona mambo ya communal living for example. Hiyo ukiangalia kama mababu zetu wengi hawajatufikia, tukikaa tupime net worth zetu na turudi kwa net worth za mababu zetu, walikuwa hata hawajatukaribia.
Kwa maana ya pesa, si ndio?
Kwa maana ya pesa, lakini utakuta kule hata kama kulikuwa na maskini pale ndani, hali yake haikuwa mbaya sana. Kama mtu leo unaweza toka na ukawa hauna makazi, ukawa naishi nje. Mara ngapi tumeona jamaa tu ambao tunawajua, unasikia mtu amefariki, siku ya mazishi ndo unasikia unaambiwa huyu hapa miaka 2 alikuwa homeless.
Lakini unapozungumzia mambo
I think it's important to understand the power the individual has to move towards what they desire. Unaona kama sasa hiyo kitu umesema ya hiyo ya mhoga umesema that in between, right? And you see it with our kids, right? So our kids growing up, you learn mtoto akiwa mdogo anasema I'm American, anaenda Kenya anasema I'm American, but by the time they get to college, because I have older ones, they realize they're not
they
American.
have another identity.
That's when
they're not American. No, are they really black American? They're not white. They're this other thing in between. Let me tell you the best thing you can do for your child, and I learned by mistake, because my daughter Lisa lived in Kenya for 1 year when she was 8 to 9, and Lisa, you can connect na home, because where people can pronounce, where they can pronounce jina yake vizuri, where they can tell ukoo yake ni wapi. You guys, you think is a joke. Obama akijitoa hapa kujipeleka Kenya kutafuta watu wao, unafikiria ni mchezo? Hiyo kitu ya identity. So to and part of that is for us now, like for me, my 2 youngest kids with my wife, wako Kenya saa hii kwa grandmother, because I'm in school, my wife is in school, we're both working. So the options were, we look for a nanny to babysit our kids in our house. A live-in nanny or we take them to the grandma. Tukaambia unajua nini? Grandma is better. To build this community, you can't build. To be able to build this community, you have to actually build a community, and you start with the one that you have. Mimi, my kids' godparents, my siblings, they're very involved to a certain extent. Na vile tunalea watu, they're very involved. When like one time my daughter was 6, the godparents were there. Tulipiga tu simu kuuliza swali. They were there immediately. So to have that community, then to connect your kids na roots zao ni important. If your kids can't go home, come on, end up doing, find a community that you connect
around
with.
You. Yeah,
and unfortunately or fortunately, the only other third place that's left for most of us Africans is religious. When they took away our culture, hiyo setup ilienda. Ukienda saa hii, my friend Maganda alishushagua for about 1 year. Aliniambia
I thought it was longer.
Aliniambia yeye parents zake akigrow up haja hiyo wakienda church walimove shago ni elders kwa church, anashinda what happened. But I told him, Maganda, just look at their life ni
prior to
no life ya shago either ni watu wa church wanakuja ama watu wa church hata fadhake akitoka kwa bar lazima ataenda kwa church first alafu apitie like it's jumuiya. It's so however you define that community, again that third place where you and your family can connect to have a community, right? Because that's how unajua hii community kubwa haijengagwi na community exist. It's you, your family, your siblings, if you want to connect to a church or a club. We don't have, like that time we used to go skiing as a group. It was a good thing. But because
it was such a sweet thing.
It was
and we connected.
We
connected the kids.
We connected the kids.
The kids learned who they are.
My kids, when my daughter Lisa is in Kenya, most of the, like hey, because my daughter goes a lot. And so she's like, hey, because anatoka London, she's in school in London, and anasema, Kenya, mimi naenda Kenya, nyinyi mnipate Kenya. And then she now, her friends who are here, like, hey guys, come to Kenya. Hata wengine ma parents zao na mapepa, they send their kids to Kenya, they hang out together, they come back, they're like, hey, Anto, because they connect to the part of themselves that makes sense, right? Because they're like, hey, my dad's accent, how I grew. Like this whole thing sometimes doesn't make sense until they go home, they're like, oh, I am a Kenyan American. They wear these bands proudly. I see kids now in their mid-30s who never lived in Kenya, who identify this Jessica Rango, who identifies with Kenya, has Nairobi nights. Like I saw this guy growing up because going that part of it, right? Connecting them to that. Najua tulianza hapa kwa gadgets, but it cannot be independent of how the community you build around them.
Yeah. So I think it's also important. It's also important. Ndasoma comments. It's also important to acknowledge that you know, like every generation, including ours, especially this first generation that we came here, there are mistakes that we've made.
Of course,
What happens sometimes is I feel like people try to double down and act like those were not mistakes. That's just how things were being done. It's important to acknowledge, you know, like kuna makosa fulani ambazo zilikuwa zimefanywa, and then of course, you know, like also giving this generation grace. They were a generation that was first generation here. Mostly people who came to college, there was no adult guidance. You know, like tulikuja and that elder structure of like uncles or even people, you come here when you're 19 years old, even that group of people that's in their mid-30s or even they're not there. So sasa ni nyi wenyewe mnaanza,
you find your own way.
Blind people are leading each other.
Alafu tuongeze hiyo problem, unaanza kutuma pesa home. Sasa hata wakisikia unafanya kitu wanaogopa kukuambia because now they are dependent on you.
They're dependent on you.
So now hakuna mali direction inatoka.
you know, like maybe one important piece of advice for people who are coming here, especially, you know, like our communities. By our communities, I mean people who come here with that now triple identity. You have your, you know, you have your identity where you came from, and then now you're here, you're in America, and then now you're Muslim on top of that, because that's another layer that I think sometimes is not appreciated. This is it's a fairly, I'm not going to say America is a fairly but there's a lot of Islamophobia out there. So this is an issue that you also have to deal with, because you're also dealing with this child with their ethnic identity, and then kuna hii identity ingine pia konayo that you also have to work on, which is now entirely different, and also understanding that as parents we need guidance and we need help. So I think it's important to know, you know, like that especially with younger parents who are maybe in the early 20s, it's important to be within a setup where you can get some guidance on certain issues which we do not necessarily get. But back to the gadgets part and the devices, which is what we're talking about, I still feel like there's something that's being ignored. You know, these gadgets, wanasikia watoto wanajiua based on, you know, like when inakuja inafika point where sasa now investigations are being done, unakuta mtoto anafika mpaka anajiua based on things that were happening online. And that's the reason why I'm saying, you know, like it's one thing to brush off and say that you know, like if you do this and that, it will be okay. But then there's another dimension that I think most parents do not understand. Take, for example, like myself, you know, like me nime boycott TikTok. I only started going to TikTok when when we created an account on the One Mic Show and Mambo ya Gaza. But TikTok, it's a platform that I honestly fairly do not understand. You know, like I do not understand it. So yes, so no, kuna wazee kuniliko ambao wanaielewa. Kuna wazee kuniliko ambao wanaielewa.
Wewe ni mzee ushajizoea.
No, you can resist.
Yeah.
Hata mimi nime resist, but
no, kuna wazee
I have a TikTok account.
But what I'm trying to say, DB, is that
no, it's a time thing.
Kuna kitu nasema DB, there's certain things that no matter how great as parents we are, that we do not understand. Because think about TikTok. TikTok is a fairly popular platform. Nowadays, people are going to chat on gaming websites. These are things that parents don't understand. So you might be doing all the right things, but these are things that wanasikia watu walikutana kwa gaming sites.
One mic anasema?
Yeah.
Twitch.
Unakuta watu walikutana kwa gaming sites, and it's not only gaming. There's so many other things that
are password ya TikTok.
Yeah. Imagine mtu anakuwa influenced online, anaenda anabuy ticket, anaenda Syria kupigana. That's been happening. So, and these are people where how do you decipher that as a parent? Because tunaweza kusema unafanya hivi na hivi, but there's the way this technology has moved is at a such breaknecking speed that things are happening now. Tuko na AI.
So Ali, I think we naangalia technology like how. So growing up sisi ilikuwa ni Morogoro. So we used to have this game ambapo tulikuwa tunachukua tairi ya tractor ile ya nyuma, the big one. Na hii ilikuwa mdogo, ile height ambayo unaweza ukasimama ndani ya tire, right? Mnasimama, it was kind of stupid kufanya hivyo. Mnakwenda sehemu ambayo ina slope, unasimama, unaingia ndani, and then unaanza kukimbia. The issue is unavyokimbia unaifanya move. But the faster you move, the faster you gotta move. Sindio? Kwamba kadri unavyokimbia na yeye anavyozidi kukimbia, and then ili usidondoke, what's happening? Na wewe sasa inabidi ufanye nini?
Ukimbia.
Na mnakwenda mpaka unafika kule chini, unajigonga, and then unaamka, na teknolojia imefikia katika stage hiyo. But unachokizungumza wewe, kama ulivyosema mwanzo, there is no way unaweza eliminate athari za gadgets. Usichotaka, hutaki kujilaumu kwa kitu ambacho kilikuwa ndani ya uwezo wako. Okay? Kwamba kama una uwezo wa kuzuia na ukufanya, hapo ndo pana shida. Lakini kama umeshafanya kila kitu, that's like wewe una baiskeli alafu mtu mwenye pikipiki amekupita, and then you beating yourself up kwamba nitakiwa nimkamate yule mtu, wakati unajua speed yako imefikia wapi. So nachotakiwa ni kwamba tambua uwezo wako, elewa what you can and you can't do, fanya kilicho ndani ya uwezo wako, kwa sababu wakiondoka pale, hata kama ukimnyima mtoto simu, lakini muda wote yuko shuleni, yuko na mwanafunzi ambaye ana simu na wanachat. Sasa hapo utafanya nini?
Ndio, how about also pia kuelewa kwamba kuna mambo mengi ambayo pia sisi hatujui na
hiyo ni jambo la kwanza, lakini uweze ukajilaumu kwa kitu ambacho hukijui.
So now once umeelewa kwamba kuna mambo ambayo kwamba hujui, na hii ni kitu ambayo kijamii inajulikana, because part of the problem is that in hii system ya ubinafsi utakuta kwa mara nyingi kila mzazi, hata ukijaribu tu kumkosoa kidogo, utakuta ni vita. So unakuta mara nyingi sometimes mimi na kuona wewe tunajuana, na muona mtoto wako anaangamia na ingia shimoni, lakini naogopa kukuambia kwa sababu tumejiweka katika hiyo hali ambayo kwamba hatutaki kuishi kijamii, hatutaki kukosolewa.
Sasa hapo kosa ni nani? Sasa hapo kosa ni nani? Kosa ni la mzazi.
Sasa kosa hapo, unajua tumeishi katika dunia ambayo kwamba watu wamefunzwa ubinafsi. Sasa unaona sasa,
lakini tumeshaambia kwamba chochote ukifunzwa kuchukia unaweza kufunzwa kupenda.
Ali, acha nikwambie, a simple thing I learned a long time ago. Kulikuwa na best yangu mwingine kwetu Mora alikuwa anauza viatu Sunbeam, tulikuwa tunaenda naye gym Railways. Sasa bado nilikuwa nimekonda, lakini bado nilikuwa naenda gym. So tumekana Mora once anauza viatu, then nikamwambia sijui nini juu ya chapa. Akaniambia, nini nakusumbua juu ya pesa zako ziko kwa mfuko za watu wote hapa. Nikamwambia, what do you mean? Akasema, pesa zako zote zile unataka ziko kwa mfuko za watu. Unaweza tengeneza kitu ya value wauzie, unaweza wafanyie kazi wakupatie, unaweza wakon, ama unaweza wapiga nyongolo uchukue. It's up to you. But anything and everything, the lesson from that was anything and everything you need in life is with people. Money is just a means. It's with people. Once you understand that, na ndio hii swali anakuuliza makosa ni ya nani, because it is up to you, the individual, up to you, the parents, to build the community. Mimi Ali, for example, the way I know you, if I saw something, I am, because of how I know you, and the way tunaongea na you've opened up to me, I have the ability to come and talk to you and be like, Ali, hii kitu na najua wewe vile naweza kuambia na vile naweza ongelesha umosh, because it's different, right? Now, if mimi ni ule wa Kenya, you know what, me I've made it, blah blah blah, ama kama ule jamaa, people don't even think I sound like a Kenyan, blah. Ushaji isolate. Iki happen, mtu anasemanga maybe ako na plan, because umefunga dirisha zako zote za kimaisha, dirisha mlango, there's no way for me to easily access without breaking. Because there is nowhere you've left an opening for anyone to be able to access you, to be able to say anything to you or your kids. And happen to work on the people around. So, environment, for me to be able to tell you, for us to be able to build a community, individuals have to be willing to build those communities. And what does that mean? That means being able to open, so that like create an environment where you feel comfortable telling me, ukijana wako bedhe, unaona ama mtoi wako bedhe, kuna vile ameaduate. Without me feeling unani judge, right? Problem, by the way, ni thyroid ni you understand what I mean? But if wewe issue hata vile ulisema, you know, someone passes away or someone is sick, and when there's a challenge bringing the community around, almost always that person is isolated. You will rarely see that ati tunamjua ana belongs to this community, or that community is a part of this group. Hata kama if the group is a bar, you will see people show up. The time you have the biggest problem is when that person is isolated, for either by choice. Sasa misijui, I don't know why they're isolated, so I'm not going to make an assumption. It's when they're isolated. It's the same problem. If you're going to run into an issue, unajua saa ingine we get called kuja uongelesha mtoto wangu ako 17 blah blah blah. Unajiuliza kutoka 1 mpaka 17 nimekuwa wapi? Because now what I'm a stranger. What am I going to come tell you a child? Right? But if I'm that uncle who shows up, anakuja mimi, there's a guy called Wanyoike, but budangu ako napenda kwenda kwenda ball. Kuna wakumetia madhangu alikuwa anaitwa Wanyoike. Alikuwa ananiambia aje tulikuwa naenda naye ball. Mimi ni fan wa FC mbaya sana. Mimi nilikuwa naenda ball za FC, CT. If that's how niliget, stay and study na budangu. but mimi napenda kwenda study serious because somehow
there was a community.
There was a community around, so you understand what I mean? But that community was built. Na who created it? Sini mzazi. So hizi vitu tunasema, okay, yes, the world has trained us that way, but we are learning. Hata ukiangalia hizi huku western culture kule tunakuaga hata na family zao ndogo, their level of networking is serious. When we got here to college, you see this gamma pies here, tunafikiria ni devil worshipping. That's the way of networking.
That's the way of networking.
To us it was strange because no one vile nani was saying it is strange. Hii ni nini mnaenda sijui unaheziwa sijui unafanya nini, but it is they have their own ways and methodologies. Sasa kumbuka sisi ni hiyo mwogo imepikwa katikati, tumeacha vile si communicate na group zetu juu maybe mchango ni mingi ama sasa pia hauko huku kwingine kwa hizi gama sai tata nini
unaanza kusema I don't sound Kenyan. I don't even sound Kenyan.
Hapa katikati, right? And so imagine when mtu mzima uko hapa katikati. Sasa watoto wako hii muhogo hii ya katikati hii watoto wejiambie ile challenge umwapatia kimaisha. Now even them they can't access you because they don't know who you really are. They have no now you've created an environment around your kids where they are not rooted in anything. They don't understand the parent, so now they are left to the device. And saa ingine nasikia wanaongeleza ChatGPT kama mtu.
I know.
But if you're rooted in something, if you're rooted in something, if you're rooted in a community, if you're rooted and grounded in something, it doesn't matter what that thing is. Madhi alikuwa anasema kutoka Buru kwenda town njia ni mingi. Unaweza panda 36, 58, unaweza tembea, unaweza panda train huko juu usilipe. Unaweza like them, as long as there is a route that has been left. Right? This is mimi naweza lea mtoto wangu kama Mkristo Mkatoliki for example. But anaweza fika mahali aseme nitakuwa Muislamu na ni sawa. Right? In the sense that yeye amejichagulia for whatever reason, but sikumwacha tu hivyo. Right? Kama these are the and hiyo ni kidini tu. These are the values in you. I tell my kids the biggest, we've had these conversations. What do you teach your kids now? The best skill a child can have, in my opinion now, is versatility and resilience. And as unfortunately, it has to be manufactured. What do I mean by that? Unaona mse wale wase wa mjengo home. Right? Ule jamaa ukimpita anakaa kama model. Maisha ngumu, lakini chiseled. Ameunga. Like crazy, right? Lakini maisha ngumu. Watoto wako wana chance ya maisha ngumu. Lakini ukitaka kuwa na hiyo mwili, it will cost you. It will cost you your time. It will cost you discipline. It will cost you a gym membership. To get the same thing, someone who has a problem
is getting it for free.
So you have to manufacture easy challenges. Hapo kuna easy challenges. Tukienda skiing na Omosh. Right? So my daughter may decide anataka ku snowboard. Mimi niko kwa skis bado. Snowboarding, skiing when you ski unaenda gani kama miguu. It's easier for me to learn. Snowboarding ni opposite. Unaanzanga nini imeangalia cross, mwili imeangalia huko. Kuanguka ni lazima. My skis, my daughter, my snowboard broke, kwenda kurudi nikachange, nikampata kwa board. Anapanda juu. Si alianguka, analia paka mimi nageuka natoa machozi. Lakini nageuka namuuliza, "Are you okay? We go home." Anambia, "No, let's go back." I think tulishinda kwa hiyo mlima the whole day. Eventually, she came down that hill without falling. She was so proud of herself. And I was like, you know what? I think she's going to be okay. That is manufactured gym. Mali, you see, when sahi media atasia kukimbia marathon. Kuna time nilikuwa nakimbianga marathon serious. There was a doctor. This guy was maybe almost 80 or 79.
Ulikuwa unatutisha wewe.
He was 79. And I asked this doctor, tumekimbia 20 mile from PA to Baltimore. Nikamuuliza, by the way, mbona unajisumbua kukimbia hizi vitu? Akaniambia, you know what, Steve? See, the mind is a very interesting thing. It does not know the difference between a manufactured problem and a real problem. That's when someone watches a movie with a snake and they're scared of snakes, they are scared as if that snake is alive. They know it's in the TV, but their mind doesn't know that. So I grew up in Potomac. I think the granddad or the great-granddad was immigrant. So the dad was a doctor, and I think the grandfather was a doctor. The great-granddad was immigrant. And maybe I grew up in privilege, but I grew up in a childhood where we'd go camping and you'd have to kill to eat. We'd sleep in tents. We hated it. But then when I was doing my residency and I was up for 24 hours, my body kind of knew how to deal with it. And I remember talking to my dad years later. I hadn't even thought about it. And now my kids, because I got my kids when I was after residency, and I was asking Dad, why did you keep taking us camping, blah blah blah? And the dad told him, because it builds a resiliency in you when you have when you have abundance, when you have ukona vitu, you have to train your mind. You have to find ways. Yakasema hiyo ukimbia, hiyo ina challenge mwili yake such that akiona hardship, mwili ikiona hardship, ukienda hizo marathon utaona most of those guys who run, they come with their kids who are 7, 8, 9, 10.
And the kids run.
Then unashindangua, si wanatoa ngapi hii kiburi ya kufanya vitu? Is because their mind has been trained and they get defeated. Anakimbia, ana lose, anaanguka, anakimbia marathon, mwili inakauka, anashinda. The next day anaamka. Hiyo ni manufactured. Sasa hii ni hiyo gym nimekwambia.
Yes.
So when you think about it in this era of abundance, you have to think kwa mtoto wako, how do you create hardships that create resilience and the ability to be agile, to adjust? Because in our parents' generation, most of our parents probably walifanya kazi ama biashara the same their whole lives.
True.
Now we are getting into a place, some of us, mid-career, because sisi watu IT, you have to learn different tools. At some point, you used to be an exchange engineer. Now you're doing cloud. Now, mid-career, we are being forced to change
and adapt.
Change the job completely.
Yeah.
The next generation is going to be happening even faster. So hii kitu umesomea, in about 5 years, kuna kitu ingine lazima usome.
Obsolete.
So the ability to be resilient, to adjust, without saying one special thing at Soma AI, so that to me is the nini, and the way you build it is to be able to build and how you do it for yourself and for someone else. Si lazima uende skiing, si lazima mtoto wako ende marathon, but you have to find a way.
Did you know why our communities become more vulnerable to especially these sudden changes is because we are not moving as a unit, and this is something that I know it has a lot of discomfort. Hapa Washeke make a comment on Facebook anasema other immigrants like Asians operate as a community and offer each other a support system that's lacking in us African that allows children to thrive. And why I say, like
Wasomali wanafanya hivyo pia.
Wasomali, yes. So Wasomali and Ethiopians, those are uniquely those are two unique African groups that do it.
Yeah.
Most of the African groups,
but here in the diaspora,
most of the African groups, no, even back home. Hey, see, mini machine or Somali.
No, not back home in Kenya, back home in Somalia. But they're struggling.
Let me tell you, Somalia is a country that has been at war. True. But despite them being at war, bado watu wanaishi tu huko. Now,
what I want you to observe is where they are a minority, that is where they are thriving, and there's a reason.
Yeah, of course. That's what Ali that was a start point.
Where they are a minority.
Yeah.
That is where they're thriving.
So I think you're talking because the only Somalia we know is the Somalia after 1991, after war. Do you know that Somalia was offering scholarships to Kenyan students? Na indo nasema tuji-challenge sometimes.
But the only Somalians we're talking about,
let's go look back.
Here in the diaspora after that time too.
No, but that's why I'm telling you, if you go back to the Somalia before the war in 91,
there's a point I wanted to make. So there's a point I wanted to make, which is I find very interesting. Where those two communities are minorities, they thrive, home core and struggle. Sisi, uku in the diaspora, community type movement struggles. Home, chamas na nini is actually one of the biggest movements towards wealth for most people. So we have it at home.
No, but Angalia, when you're talking about Kenya, the direction in which we've moved, the community that we used to have and where we are right now, Kenya has moved to an ubinafsi society. Whether we like it or not, Kenya has moved. Growing up, it was very easy, and in most households, utakuta tu mtu alikuja na akaishi na nyinyi na akagrow up na nyinyi, and you don't even know, you might not even be related, but unajua tu ni relative. That is becoming rare. It's becoming rare. It's not the way it used to be.
You're right, Ali. And the main reason why that is happening is that watu walichukia iyo maisha. Because there's a change of guard. You understand what's happening? Our parents walikuwa wamefungwa sava. All these relas and other people, wanajua tu, there's somebody who's from our village.
And also the things we don't talk about, there are some issues it came with in the household that sometimes we don't talk about.
Correct.
So
You know what I'm saying?
fair enough.
And
fair
the
enough.
kids who went through those things.
Yes, the abuse, the
Yes, the
whatever,
kids who
all
went-
of those.
So
yes.
fair enough. Fair enough. There were some cons, but I think generally, looking at it overall as a society, I strongly believe the pros outweighed the cons. But we
You're right,
yeah,
Ali. But
the
the
pros
problem,
outweighed the cons.
problem now is that the generation that is there now, not even, let's say even us, the ones who are after us, okay? Not you, my generation, your generation, the ones
Yeah.
after us. Hata hawataki kusikia kuna rela anakuja kutoka Ocha anakuja Nairobi ati sijui kukanae. That's not even in the picture. In fact, it's not even going to be suggested. Lakini your mom can come to you and tell you, by the way, Ali, you know, there's a rela of ours, yuko hivi, kuna vile tunafaa kumsaidia, akama hapa, ajisort nini. Because you saw that, you lived it, and you know what the value is in that. But ile generation ingine ile nakuja behind, wako na hiyo, they're like, wanachukia hiyo kitu, wanasema hapana, tulikuwa tumenyanyaswa, we didn't have our own bedrooms, sijui we used to share beds, I don't know nini, kulikuwa na abuse, there was those relas who came, people who sijui nini, there's a whole slew of things. So in their mind they have said, when I make it, nikipata nafasi, kuna vile hawa marela, hawa watu wa Ocha hawakuji, and I'm not supporting anybody. And that's the problem with that mindset, which also then now translates to the next generation, the kids, who even can't speak the language. For lack of a better word, they translate everything. Everything is English. You speak to them in mother tongue, they translate.
Kizungu.
Na sasa hapo ndo Bandio anarudi anasema yani we are trying to be in a certain place, we are losing what we have, but then hatuwezi kuwafikia hawa.
But okay, but
Sasa think about the guy who was saying that ati when he talks, when he speaks English, people don't even know that he's a Kenyan, yet akona accents jua kutoka Baringo ama ni Tinderet na unaisikia. But anasema, you know, like why someone, you know, how does someone, you know, who came from maybe a certain kind of life get to a point where anaanza kukaa na kufikiria hivyo? It's because we've been encouraged to want to how do I put it? We've been encouraged to want to look at a certain culture or live in a certain direction, and then pia tumekuwa encouraged kwenda hiyo direction ya ubinafsi. And I know, you know, like communal stuff has its issues, but I can tell you the issues that come with ubinafsi are far worse. And you know who's the most vulnerable members of our community that are never talked about? It is single moms. So if you know, yes, those are the most vulnerable people in our communities.
Tell me more.
Single moms, and the reason why I say this is, and we've had even these discussions in our WhatsApp groups, nanini, because a single mom is a single point of failure, for lack of a better word. Meaning, if something happens to her, tuseme kama kona watoto wawili watatu, they're all minors. If something happens to her, then you know, like the kids might end up in either in foster care. Like it's a very thin place. But because we don't have that communal setup, or we are not necessarily looking to rewire it in a very serious way from the ground up, we are leaving a lot of very vulnerable people in the community, which is why I always tell people, if you have a friend or a relative who is a single mother, every 2-3 days, we mpigie tu simu, ongea tu na yeye, because now you see these things where we have a two-parent household, but bado kuna hiyo distraction where now the parent has to give the child, you know, like an iPad to play with or whatever. Now imagine if you're only one single mother, uko na watoto wawili, hata kama uko na job nzuri, it's paying you whatever amount of money, but that is the most vulnerable person that we have to take care of in our society, but we have been either trained or conditioned not to see it that way.
No.
I mean, I see it that way, but there's like there are always different ways of doing something. So one thing is check on people. The other thing is Musa Manikama insurance, right? So it is my responsibility to pay my car insurance, my life insurance, whatever kind of beforehand, to anticipate what my issues are, so that I can have whatever that insurance is. Social capital is insurance, right? But it is almost always in the onus of the individual to build it or to pay for it before. And how do you do that? With your time. Doesn't cost you money, but with your time. So there's, yes, check on people, but think about it. We are all dealing with whatever we can deal with.
Yeah.
So almost always you will check on who? The person who checks on you.
Correct.
Right?
Or response.
Or response,
Yeah.
right? What is that? That takes your time.
Correct.
That's how you build it.
Yeah.
You build it with time. There's no. Actually, we were talking with one Mike one day, and I was telling him, one thing I learned when I was in the dips of my drinking, I found myself on a Tuesday night with semi-permanent, semi-homeless people in an abandonmenium. You know what an abandonmenium is?
Hizi nyumba zimewa.
It's abandoned.
Abandoned house.
Lakini imeibwa stima na imewekwa cardboard na hata iko na AC, lakini ni ya kuibwa. It's called an abandon. On a Tuesday night. Tukipiga drinks mbaya. And later when I was reflecting, I asked myself, but then what was I doing there? And I told one Mike, but then ilikuwa hiyo akaniambia ulifikaje huko? Ngambia hata usitaki kujua. And then I realized, unajua vile watu wanasemanga, I was going through it, and then people left. People never leave. You leave the people. You leave the people, and somehow you expect them to come for you. So whenever I wanted to drink wherever my friends are, they were always there for me. Then make sure I get home. But sasa juu pombe imefikania Wednesday na Thursday na wanakunywanga Friday na Saturday. Sasa si mnatafuta kwingine.
Sasa unatafuta hiyo ingine.
But una realize pombe ni cheaper blah blah blah. So kwenda hii round ingine, then one day utasema wale watu waliniacha kuacha. Almost. So in these conversations, and when mtaona nikicircle back to for the community to thrive, the individual has to take responsibility. For your kids to thrive, the parent has to take responsibility and be active in whatever that is. Now, the outcome, wacha niwapatie example. Hapa tuseme DC, Omoch umefungua restaurant hapa 2019. Restaurant umeomba 1 million. Restaurant imeshika kuna line. By 2019 katikati 900k in hata ushaanza kusave chapa, unasema, you know what, I'm going to open another one. Then COVID happens. Right? There's nothing you did. You did everything right. Everything was going right.
Correct.
There was a variable that came out of left side that there was no way to foresee it. Sasa, at that point, ni wewe uadjust. Uanze kupeleka delivery, ulipe maloni ufunge, uchome ulipwe. It's up to you.
Yeah.
To adjust. It's up to you to adjust at that point, right? But the outcome, your responsibility is to try and do your best. The outcome, kuna variables zingine they'll come. So I tell people, don't worry about the outcome. Worry about ile kitu. You
have in control.
You could have friends. You could do this, and then something could happen, and these friends of yours disappear.
Correct.
But DB, can we say this? In addition to individual responsibility, is it also okay to have accountability for communal responsibility? Because
but who do you hold accountable?
No, and that's
how?
what I'm saying.
Who and how?
And that's what I'm saying. We need to build structures to have communal responsibility held accountable. Like for example, how do I? The way like within your family unit, like your nuclear family, you're living in the same household. If something is going on with one of the children, the parents, one reason or another, will be held liable if they did not take any action in either trying to curtail or stop something that they had already seen. So I think there has to be, like another structure, which is what these other units that move together, that is what they do. There's someone unemployed in the community. Let's try to figure out a way to get employment for him. There's someone who's having trouble paying rent. Let's figure out. This takes intentionality, and it takes building structures. But I know because, and that's why I'm telling you, the reason why I think we are seeing this in very different parts is, remember we talked about the two education systems. I think that's where sometimes people look at me as crazy, because I used to wonder sometimes, how come I think this way? And at some point it came clear to me. We live in a world where, we've been trained individual bootstraps. Pick up your bootstrap. Ni makosa yako. Ni makosa yako.
It depends on the community. Let me tell you, there's a day...
We've been really conditioned that way,
Hold on.
whereby the community, and anything happens, we want to always lay the blame on the individual. And yes, there's individual accountability, but there also has to be some level of communal accountability.
I've been a part, especially of the Oklahoma City community, Dallas community. But I've been in this, and I've hung out with different subsets of people, right? And I'll tell you this, that the problem you're saying is mostly an urban problem. Mostly an urban problem. It's not urban people of the urban setting who came from, let me say Kenya, I don't know about Tanzania, to the US. If you find people who are from different rural settings in Kenya, that problem inakuwa wanasolve hata mashida wenyewe kwa wenyewe. Kuna machief, kuna elder, kuna OC, kuna system. Sisi watu wa urban ndio tuko kwa hii mhogo ya katikati. I was somewhere once where a guy was arrested na ICE on Tuesday. Ikakuwa lazima bail ipatianwe by Thursday, atoke Friday, otherwise ikifika weekend, blah blah blah. This is Tuesday. Tukaenda mahali kuraise pesa on a Wednesday. Ni wa Kenya. Tuliharakisha hapo haraka tukaraise I think 7,000, 8,000. And then the guys were like, okay, 3 of his boys says, minda to 5, minda to 3, minda to... The guy was out the next day. I was like, what? I had never seen anything like that. Nikajiuliza, watu, kwani wako na pesa inakaja? Sema, si akitoka tutajua ule talipana, blah, 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 blah. I was like, what? Mimi, bail, these are 2,000 za DUI ama bail zingine naonanga zikisumbua watu. How? And then I came to understand that in this general thing we call Kenyans, there are subsets of groups that have very tight communities. There are communities from Murang'a that have a circle that they are built. Even and it's you are born from a certain community. If your parent is in it, unaingizwa, you invest. Kuna zingine. So those communities are there. It's just people in those communities never advertise, but they are there.
Okay.
They're there. So, and the reason I'm saying they're there. So, how do I know they're there? Because in talking to different people, you find out, for example, is it before now, MDKO, Luos have Uaga, there's Baltimore community. All these benevolent things have been there for a long time. But mostly people of those communities knew about them, other people didn't know.
Correct.
Now, how do you have to, and if you participate, so for example, if you participate in Uaga, for example, or in whatever, in any of these communities, it's a benevolent group. But anything else happens to you, they will call your network. Nani hana job. But guess what? Kama uko na job, kama uparticipate kwa group, you're on your own. But you have to participate. What does that mean? You have to throw the 15 bob or 50 bob. You have to participate.
Sure.
That's why I say and that's why when you were part of communal systems that you found existing, right now we are addressing communal systems for a subset of people who are broken. To build those, to try to build them is more difficult than to find one to join.
So here's my question.
Does that make sense?
I get what you're going, like with this, like communal tribal groups that we have here in the US.
No, don't add tribal. They're communal.
Okay, let's call them communal.
But
I use them as an example because I said
let's call them communal.
But they are communal.
Let's call them communal.
Some of those groups, Ukienda.
No, there's Wasafiri, which is the Catholic-based group. There's KCFA. In Bolti, there are many. So they are religious if you want to do the religious one. There are tribal ones if you want to do tribal ones. The biggest place that there's a challenge ni upate watu wa Buru ameshikana pamoja, ama watu wa Umo, ama watu wa Kileleshwa, ama watu in the urban space is where the issue of individualism thrives more than...
No, but DB, you're talking like these issues that happen to people in the diaspora only happen to Nairobians. That's how you're sounding. That's how. But let me make my point here. So these groups, I understand, Ziko, and there's some. Pia kuna zingine, there's some that are there for financial reasons, there's some that are there for social, there's some that are there for political reasons. Za siasa ziko nyingi sana.
Correct.
But now you see, these things are happening to all of us in the diaspora. People who came, by the way, see what we're urban setting up a diaspora from Kenya, sini wachache sana. You and I know that. We're actually a minority. Like when we look at the overall diaspora population, like I can easily say that 90% of Kenyans who are here in the US, and this is just my own estimation, ni sana watu walitoka Ocha. But now, some of these problems that are being experienced, like communally, they're not only affecting Nairobians. And then the other thing is that these structures that are being created, which is why I talk about it is very important to look into the future. The structures that are being created, they connect people who mostly were born in Kenya. Ukiangalia ile generation inafuata, they have no clue about these groups. There's mostly no structures to support them. Maybe until recently is when we started talking about now this generation that was born here.
Na hiyo ndio shida ya parenting tumekuwa tukizungumza.
Na sasa ndo nasema sasa hiyo group sasa there's no hiyo structure imetengezwa ni hao watu ambao wametoka Kenya, you know, like the older generation who when actually these newer groups, and that's where these other groups, you know, like do better than us, like the Asians, the Ethiopians, because they think of those kids who are born here, who've never been to Ethiopia, but sasa sisi tunakaa, we have a very one-dimensional way of looking at things, and sometimes utakuta hata katika hizo mikutano, you know, like they're speaking a language which the kids who are born here would not speak, so they don't even feel like they are part.
Okay, know, like, so Ali, the fact kwamba uko na mtoto,
yeah,
nyinyi nyumbani mnazungumza lugha, alafu mmekwenda kwenye kikao, mtoto azungumze lugha, unafikiri tatizo lina nani pia?
Unasema
yani mpaka mtoto amefikia stage anakwenda kwenye mkutano wa whatever, mimi ni Mhaya, mkutano wa Wahaya, alafu niko na mabinti zangu na tunazungumza Kiana na mabinti zangu hawaelewi, unafikiri tatizo?
Unasema ni tatizo, sasa watu hawaoni hata kama kwamba ni tatizo.
Ali, wait, Ali, that's what you know, there's, okay, here in Howard County, there's Wahoko. Wahoko even has Swahili classes for Wakenya or Howard County.
Tell him what Wahoko
Wahoko is Wakenya or Howard County. There's a group. They have barbecues, they meet, they talk to their kids about college things. In Bolti tunakuanga na group, tunachomanga mbuzi mingi sana. Iyo ya Wahoko wanakuanga na the group exists. Like they have Swahili classes, there's a Swahili teacher but you have to be part, you have to belong, you have to be part of the group.
And present.
Is a group ziko in Bolti, like hata ndio umefanya nikafikiria. See the ones that ziko formed out of people from one, say, call it society or one area kutoka home, it's easier because of course there's a lot in common, so it takes, there's a lot ya mahali pa kuanzia, so it doesn't take as much effort ama it's easier tuko kwa hii, kuna ile sako inaitangwa nini. And believe you me, I know guys here who take their kids to Kenya, they've shown them, like they're part of that whole thing. These guys, they're like, oh no, me and my shamba is here. They're not, some of them speak the language, some of them don't. That's up to you. But I'm going to give you, Wahoko is one of and they're guys who come together. They have a benevolent part of that. They have a benevolent fund that they teach their kids Swahili. They do these things where they do career type training. They bring each other to like mnapatana mnaanza kuongelesha watu wakifika high school. So the groups are there. My thing today is whatever one, if you want to be intentional in how you're raising your kids, you have to, keep them busy. One of the things I suggest is, like for my kids, you have to have one activity in school, one activity out of school that, of course, involve computer. Whether you're doing chess, drama, doesn't matter, whether you're doing judo, so that uko away from the gadget. You gotta, then between mimi na wife yangu tunatoka, tunaenda kukimbia, so we are out, moving. 2, you have to be involved. If that's you have to involve your community. Ni wewe, familia yako, unaanza na familia yako, uko wako, and then you have to plug to whichever community. Like I said, in Bolti, for example, there's Wasafiri. They have mass every once Sunday. There are activities, kids go camping. They all kind of things. There's a group. The groups are there. They're not many and they're not loud, but they're there. You have to plug into one, because that is how you become a part of community. The only challenge I'm having, Ali, and I'm not saying, is to sit and say we should. And when we say we should, that is, to me, sounds like leadership by committee. Me, I say you should do. Now you should, because if I decide to come and join you, and then we can do something.
But let me tell you the challenge I've experienced. Napa emotionally nipiga break when I say tribal, and I will say again tribal. Okay. You know, and the reason I say this, I think sometimes if you come from a major community in Kenya, you guys do not realize how difficult it is to plug into these groups, because even the groups that give themselves a different name, na hizi groups ziko nyingi, even the groups that give themselves a different name, what tends to happen is there's sometimes, you know, like wakimwona Ali and there's a task they want to do. They'll call Ali because they want to throw in some diversity in the group. Na hizi vitu, we see them from a distance, because sometimes you go there and you feel like an outsider.
But Ali hapo mimi nafikiri nitakuchallenge.
Challenge me.
Kwa sababu mimi nimekuwa kwenye magrupu ya Wakenya wengi. Yes, sometimes ninakwenda kwa sababu ya technical issue ambazo nitakwenda. But I worship kwenye hizo, nimekuwa kwenye makanisa mengi ya kikabila. At one point tulikuwa na conversation hapa Mimi nimekwenda nimefanya ibada za Wakikuyu, sijui nani, karibu sijui kama kuna kanisa la DMV la kikabila la Wakenya ambalo sijapata kwenda, ambalo wanaabudu hapa. Umeenda kwa ibada za Creole na kwenda. Sioni kubaguliwa, na nafikiri ubaguzi unaanzia na wewe mwenyewe jinsi ambavyo unafikiria. Kwa sababu mtu anaweza akafanya kitu, lakini kama ndani ya fikra yako tayari umeshahisi kwamba ninachukuliwa hivi kwa sababu fulani, na hiyo mimi sijawahi kuiona. Actually sehemu nyingi wanafikiri kwamba wanaweza akakwambia okay wewe tena, hata kama mvana ni Tanzania, sio tu mimi, sio kwamba sio mtu wa kabila, sio Mkenya, yani sio hata Mkenya, lakini nafikiri kuna namna ambayo lazima sisi wenyewe tuache kuweka ile fikra ama hofu ya kwanza kwamba nikifika, remember your mental picture will determine your actual future. Kila ambacho uko nacho, kama unafikiri kuna namna ukiwa unaogopa nyoka ukapita, hata ukiwa kuna shoeless, kitu cha kwanza kitakacho imagine ni nyoka, fulani hapana, kumbe ni shoeless. Lazima sisi wenyewe tuanze, kwa sababu mimi nimekuwa kwenye ibada nyingi, kwenye vikundi vingi vya watu wa makabila mbalimbali, tena nje ya Tanzania, na hiyo sio kitu ambacho nimewahi kuifeel, licha ya kwamba ninajua kabisa I'm outside kabila, tena niko mpaka nje ya nchi. Kwa nafikiri kuna namna ambayo na nimesha kukwambia mtu yote, mimi challenge kubwa ambayo nakuwa nayo na marasta tunapokuwa tukizungumza. Marasta wanapokuwa wakizungumzia kuhusiana na Uafrika, yani wanazungumzia wale Waafrika to the point kwamba unahisi kwamba nyinyi wenyewe ndio mnaleta ubaguzi katika fikra zao. Kwa lazima sisi wenyewe tuanze kujifikiria katika namna jumuishi ya kutambua kwamba ninaweza nikaenda pale, and if anything, kama tunataka kubadilika, tusitake wao wabadilike kama si hatuwezi kuingia. Hakuna mtu anayefeli mtihani kama hujafanya. Ingia kama kuna namna fulani ya challenge. Mbona hapa tunakutana nayo kazini? Nimeshakutana na watu mara kadhaa kazini ambaye mtu anakuja anasema nimeona nyumba zenu kule nyewe maskini sana. Na unaona watu wanakucheka. Alafu bado anambia mkaa chini uniambie kwa nini maskini. Kwa sababu nimeona nyumba yote imejengwa kwa udongo. Okay. Zile nyumba za tembe unazifahamu. Nyumba zinajengwa na zile mud huts ndio zote. Alafu unaambia kwamba ngoja nikwambie hii nyumba iko Dodoma. Na kwa sababu iko Dodoma hapa ni sehemu ambayo kuna jangwa. Hakuna cloud cover. Mchana it's very hot. Usiku is very cold kwa sababu hakuna cloud cover. Huu udongo unachofanya unakupa the opposite weather na kilichopo nje. Ndio tunaotumia kwenye pots kwa ajili ya maji, ukinywa maji ya baridi. Alafu anafikia sema man, these people are smart. They move from ni maskini, wanafikia sema kwamba watu ni smart. Lakini changamoto nakutana nazo. It's like una approach vipi? Mimi nilipokutana na mwalimu wangu ananiambia kwamba uwezo ukawakoti Mmasai kama survivor kwa sababu hana masters. Nikamwambia maisha anayoishi Mmasai tangu anazaliwa mpaka anakufa, huku watu wanakwenda kwa miezi 6 narudi as a marine. Nani ambaye ni expert katika maisha yake? Kwa hiyo upo namna ambayo ningeweza kukaa na kuanza kulalamika, huyu anaona watu wetu sisi ni wapumbavu, hajasoma. Yes, hawajui hata ABCD. Lakini lazima tunapokwenda katika sehemu hizi group, the fact sisi tunapoanza na ile fear ya kwamba nikiingia nitaonwa hivi au nikienda kwenye group hili nitaonwa hivi, hapo ndipo ambapo tunamwaga mbolea kwenye hata ile mbegu ndogo ya ubaguzi. Na wabaguzi wapo. Yaani wabaguzi wapo kwenye magrupu. Lakini siamini kama ni wengi kama ambavyo tunajaribu kuwaweka. Na like I say, inawezekana ni namba ndogo, but they're always the loudest.
Now, Bandio, there was a time kuna dada fulani kutoka Texas alikuwa na tatizo fulani, single mother, sitamtaja ni nani. Alikuwa na tatizo fulani.
Sawa.
Akanipigia simu, mimi niko Maryland. Sasa mimi ndio najua watu Texas, lakini sasa sijui yani sijui ni nani sasa ambaye nitaenda kumuuliza aje mpatie mtu usaidizi. So kuna contacts 2-3 nikapatiwa. Nikaenda nikawaambia huyu dada ana tatizo fulani, anaomba usaidizi, sijui yani kama kuna njia ama kuna namna ambayo kwamba anaweza kusaidika. 3 different people. The first question wameniuliza ni what church does she go to?
Okay.
Yeah. Naoni mtu I don't even know. I don't even know if she goes to church or not. Wakaniuliza what church does she go to? Ama is there I don't know ni what word walitumia, but swali kuniuliza kama kuna kundi la kabila lake ambalo kwamba wanajuana nalo ambao wanaweza kumsaidia. So this is someone who called me randomly. Mimi hata nikashindwa 2-3 different, and these were leaders that I was talking.
Yeah, lakini Ali, unafikiri watu watatu ni sample ya kutosha kunani?
No, but I'll
alafu kuna kitu kingine ni kama vile
no, but I'll tell you the easiest if I mean it depends on how you look at it. The easiest place for anyone to start anything so that you can understand, because even me I've gotten calls like that, is to understand what is that person's network.
Yeah.
And in this country, your network is either your tribe, if you're from Kenya, you belong to a tribal group that, well, I don't know, you do whatever, or you belong to Wahoko. Do they belong to anything?
Lakini Ali, ulimuuliza kwa nini alikupigia wewe wa Maryland kama yuko Texas?
Yes, but again,
Texas kuna Wakenya wengi sana.
Listen, that's where I was going. But if the person does not belong to anything, amejitenga.
Yeah.
Right? So now that means, so once you ask that question, community leaders will ask that question to know where can we start helping you from? So like, no, they go to SDA, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let me call Nani Joanna and SDA, because those could remember I told you the other third place now in African societies, even in Kenya, church ndio imebaki. So the minute you know, anaendaga church flani, then you can najua nani anaendaga hiyo church, because now you can figure out how to dive into that community. Ama kama anakwaga group ya Wahoko, ama yeye ni wa Wasafiri ya Baltimore, ama yeye ni, but ukiuliza hiyo swali ukiambiwa hayuko kwa any group. Okay. Anaishi area gani? Okay, kama ako Dallas ako Makini. So you're trying to figure out huyu mtu jusimjui nani anaweza kuwa namjua, so that we can start creating a ring around them. If anyone was to call me about anyone in Baltimore community, I start trying to figure out who's this person, I don't know them. Who do they hang out with? Where do they live? In what county are they in? Where do they go to church? Where do the kids go to school? Because you're trying to figure out who can you start surrounding them with.
But before you go far, unaona kitu ya kujitenga, and I talk about single mothers as the most vulnerable members of our community. It's easy for us to sit here and say that, but when you're a single mother, una labda watoto watatu, for whatever reason you're single, it's not up to us to judge. Una watoto watatu, maybe you work 6, sometimes even up to 7 days a week. Maybe though unapeleka mtoto kwa babysitter ama kwa daycare. How much time do you have to...
Ali, let me tell you. How much time do you have to network? And I don't know what your numbers is, because you've said this. Okay,
how much time do you have to network?
Mine is also non-scientific. I don't know people who are more connected to other mothers than single mothers.
Na nakwambia Ali,
and I have, remember, I have kids, multiple, so I know sometimes when I go pick up my kids, I don't know people who are more connected to other mothers. Like single mothers.
Because they know
that's their survival.
That's the survival.
That's how they move kids around. So I don't know. Actually, I would opine that the person who's in most trouble is a single guy who's not married. Uyo kinaweza muumania haraka pace.
Ali na mimi wacha niseme
hivi. The communities that uyo anapigia ule anapigia ule my wife is sitting right here and she's shaking her head. Kuna network inakuwaga inoperate. You might not see it. But kuna network in operating at that level.
DB, I think we're operating with a lot of assumptions.
And
remember,
I'm saying based on my observation. You're talking about your observation. So yours and mine could be valid.
We're operating with a lot of assumptions because sisi hapa kwa hii panel, and I don't know that it was in a public or private space, a number of single mothers told us, like sometimes tupigieni hata simu. Tuulize kama tunataka kwenda kununua groceries. Sometimes it's very, very simple things. So I think we're operating on a very dangerous assumption that single mothers are okay. And
Ali,
I said they're networked.
Mimi nafikiri kuna msemo hapa, kuna msemo mmoja na nitausema, na kama kuna mtu atanisamehe. Kuna msemo ambao unasema kwamba mwiba wa kujichoma haupewi pole. Ukijichoma mwiba hustahili kupewa pole. Kuna effort ambazo kila mtu lazima afanye. Sawa? Yani kuna vitu ambavyo hapa swala la kunetwork ni gumu kwa kila mtu. Either ni una watoto, mko 5, mko 10, networking ni ngumu.
Small talk is hard.
Hii ni sawa na kusema kwamba una asthma na unajua kwamba unahitaji inhaler na unaamua kuiacha nyumbani. Ukijua kabisa kwamba somehow utahitaji. Ni sawa na kujua kwamba una kisukari lakini unaacha insulin yako nyumbani, knowing that unajua kwamba you're single mother. Kuna baadhi ya challenges ambazo zinahitaji networking. Sasa kama unafikiri kwamba maisha ni magumu sasa hivi as a single mother, imagine a single mother without network, and you have to put effort. Na ndio maana nakwambia kwamba it doesn't matter maisha ni magumu kiasi gani, there's always room ya kuweza kutry a little bit harder. Yes, maisha yanaweza kuwa magumu. Yes, wanaweza wasiwe katika kiwango unachokitaka, lakini kila mtu lazima aweke effort. Tunarudi pale pale mwanzo uliposema, it's not about nini uko nacho, ila umeweka effort kiasi gani katika kulifanikisha hilo. Na mimi nafikiri kama umejijua, ndio maana unasema mtu kwamba kama mtu anajua na magonjwa fulani, anasema wacha niweke insurance kwa sababu ninajua kabisa kwamba nitakuja kuhitaji. Kutokuwa na network kabisa, especially kama ni choice, hiyo nayo ni mwiba wa kujichoma. Nao sidhani kama unastahili kupewa pole. Swala tunatakiwa tuangalie ni vipi tunaweza tukawasaidia single mother. Maybe unajua, tuweke mfano. Wewe unafikiri sasa hivi ukianzisha WhatsApp group ya kusema single mothers ambao mna nani sasa amwezi, unafikiri wangapi wanaweza kujiunga katika hao unaowafahamu?
Sijakuelewa hapo.
Ukianzisha group ya networking kwa ajili ya single mothers, hao ambao unawafahamu ambao wamesema kwamba angalau mtupigie simu, unafikiri wangapi wataweka effort ya kujiunga na hiyo group yako?
Bado sijaelewa hilo swali lako, because
ninachomaanisha ni kwamba na wao wenyewe single mothers, kwa sababu kuna watu ambao wanapenda kwenda mbinguni hawataki kufa. Sawa hiyo ni kawaida. Kwa kuna vitu ambavyo unaweza kusema kwamba ikitokea kuna opportunity ya networking. The One Mic Show amesema tunaanzisha WhatsApp group kwa ajili ya single mother kuweza kunetwork. Wewe unafikiri katika hao unaofahamu ni wangapi wanaweza wakajump in kwamba maanzisha leo wakasema okay, this is opportunity.
Bandio, ndakueleza ni like a couple of things that a number of single mothers have told me that we work on a lot of assumptions. Tulikuwa na group yetu moja hapa Germantown, Gaithersburg, ambapo watu walikuwa wanakuja wanakutana sana, na saa kuna wengine ulikuwa unaona wanakuja mara wameondoka. Sasa one of the reason wanasema one issue with this, especially these community groups where families are coming together, there's an, what do you call it, an unwritten rule whereby kuna watu ambao hawataki katika hizo group, because there's some groups that have families and there's some passive aggression. Lakini
hamna ambaye ameambiwa, si ndio? Hakuna ambaye ameambiwa. Kuna mtu ambaye ameambiwa kwamba usije.
No, unajua sometimes,
kwa sababu tunarudi pale palipozungumzia kuhusu assumptions.
Unajua kufukuza pia hakuambii toka.
No, lakini unarudi pale unasema kwamba kuna assumptions. Wao sasa wanaanza kuassume kwamba hawahitajiki. Hawajaondolewa.
Ndo nakwambia we are making very dangerous assumptions.
That's what they make it. Na wao ndo wanafanya hivyo kwamba eti kuna unwritten rule ya kusema kwamba na wao pia wanatakiwa wafanye nini. Na mwandri kama na sisi kama wao hawa make the same mistake ambao wewe unaizungumzia kwamba sisi tunafanya. Sisi hatu assume, lakini kama unakwenda sehemu ukasema kwamba ninahisi sihitajiki, hiyo ni assumption yenyewe. Sasa ukisema kwamba kuna kitu amefanya.
Bandio, that's in an ideal world. Kama uko katika sehemu ambao watu hawakutaki pale, si lazima mtu akuambie hakutaki. Wewe utajua kama binadamu. Utajua. Ndio sometimes utakuwa umefanya makosa, labda si kweli, but kuna wakati ambapo kwamba utajua mimi sehemu hii stakikani. Kuna groups ambazo kwamba maybe they don't say it, and that's where I say like it's easy for you Bandio as an outsider from Kenyans katika
hiyo kitu nimeikataa kabisa.
Yani ni sawa ukikataa, ni sawa ukikataa, but we kuja ulize watu ambao wako katika position yetu katika
what do you mean by yetu?
By position yetu sisi watu ambao kwamba tumetoka like sehemu ambazo kwamba hatupo wengi sana hapa Marekani. Ukijaribu kuingia katika group fulani,
umewahi kuondolewa ali?
Hakuna kuondolewa.
Wewe umewahi kuondolewa kwenye group au ulikuwa ni assumption hiyo?
Sometimes si kuondolewa, sometimes uko ndani ya group watu hawajui uko ndani, wanakuongea wewe hapo ndani ya group na wewe uko ndani hawajui kwamba.
What do you do when that happen? What do you do? Kwa sababu nimesha kuongea na watu niko ndani ya ndege, niko ndani ya basi. Siwezi nikashuka. Sasa na mimi niligeuka nikaongea wakajua kwamba kumbe hawa wapo. Unafikiri unamsaidia vipi wewe ukiondoka wakati ni tabia?
Lakini ndo nasema Bandio,
mimi natamani kujua kitu ambacho kimewahi kufanyika, wewe ukasema kwamba sihitajiki ndani. Yaani nataka nione hiyo ili na mimi nifikiri kwamba labda umezungumzia kuhusu assumption, labda mimi ninaassume bila kujua. Mfano ambao unaweza kuniambia kwamba hiki kilitokea nikajua sitakiwi kwenye ile group. Unajua? Natamani nijue hivyo kwa sababu other than that tutakuwa tunafanya niendelee kuishi katika kitu ambacho umeniambia nisifanye assumption.
What you're thinking, mimi junaitwa Dombolo. Unajua I have friends who found out I was born a Kikuyu when my brother died. Na nakaa nao saa ingine unasema Kikuyu, hata mimi na participate tu. And I'm like, mbona utuambia? Nasema, sometimes some of these things is not that serious. Sometimes we're chilling, sometimes we're hanging.
Akimika bonkangu kwako hivi siwezi nikaweka nafasi ya
I'm not, the guys were like, ala, there's a guy who lost $500 because alikuwa na bet. Kwa sababu hapana, lazima kwenye ametoka nini hata bla 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 bla. And so it's about perspective. Now, what Bandio is asking is very important, because if these groups are to be created as you have campaigned or as you have shared, then someone has to be strong enough and bold enough to live through the kuongelewa blah blah blah. Because almost always when people have their own what wana kujudge, they only judge
perceptions.
They judge you based on their own perceptions. Then to bolster your what you're sharing is, then it is also our own responsibility to kukaa hapo and to actually re-educate them as to who I am, as to their misconceptions. Yeah. Otherwise, how do you create these groups? The minute you join a group, especially if you find yourself in the minority, you're like, hey, maybe they say something that makes you feel uncomfortable and you bounce. How do you I think part of the responsibility, one is they should welcome you, but at the same time, I think we should also take time to educate them for the betterment of the group, if we're talking about the group. If we're campaigning for the group and we're looking out for the group, then you cannot say, I feel uncomfortable. You cannot say, let's look out for the group, but at the same time say, when I feel comfortable, I leave the group. Because then the group is...
All right.
It's messed up.
Okay. Ali, twende tumalize manake naona
hapa kunaga filter.
Kunaga filter. Okay. Twende tumalize, nafikiri muda pia umekimbia hapo.
Yes. Kulikuwa na comments.
Twende kwenye comments, yes.
Yeah, kulikuwa na comments hapa ambazo zilikuwa zimekuja hapa. Naona Mimoko Inange from Texas anasema shout out to
sasa
all single mothers.
Kuna mtu amepiga simu.
Tena sasa unaona ngoja mpaka dakika mwisho.
Amepiga simu sasa. Tuone hapa. All right. 72118 kama naweza nikipata. Hello.
Welcome to the One Mic Show.
Si wonge. Hello.
Hello, is this me?
Yes.
Yes, please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
This is Ruth, calling from where? Maryland?
Okay.
Karibu Ruth.
Habari yenu.
Mzuri sana. Ruth, talk to us.
So, great conversation. And I think I just want to echo Bandio and Steve on creating community. I think one of the things that we do a lot, and I like the when Steve said, people don't leave you, you leave them. For the most part, that is what happens. I would say like 98% of the time, people leave the community. They doesn't really leave them. But to your point, Ali, in terms of like people creating community, I'm gonna give an example. When I moved to Massachusetts, I was at the time very minority. I was the only Kamba amongst Kikuyus, and I would get the comments of like, "Am I even needed here? I need to name that, right?" So no, Kikuyu, songe Kikuyu, you know that Kikuyu, and I'm like, no, I don't speak. I speak my own language, right? But I knew I needed to be part of a community. And so I found that there were more things for me to be part of that community than to be like, they always want me to speak Kikuyu. When I go to the events, they only speak Kikuyu, right? So you have to find a common ground, which I'll tell you is far greater than the things that you would feel like, say, if you don't belong. But you have, like, I think there is a personal responsibility to community, to feeling that you belong. To even being welcome a place, rather than saying that it's a lot hard to do that. You have to be intentional yourself. So in the case of single mothers, as you're saying, now I'm not saying, I'm not a single mother myself. So, but I have friends who are, as they said, they are the most connected in terms of like fellow mothers, or even people who at least will know about them. If it ever gets to a point where there is isolation, there are people who calling each other, but I also say they also have a responsibility, not just for themselves, but for their children to be part of a community, whether it's a place they can take their kids for babysitting, or a place they can take the kids for community. Like, you cannot be isolated so much that you and your children don't have a place or people to belong to. I think, as they said, we need to insist on that part of like there is a responsibility for people to be part of a community.
Asante Ruth.
But you guys are doing great.
All right, thank you, Ruth. All right, 0924. Hello.
Hi.
Damn, people calling the last minute.
I know. Yeah. Hello.
Welcome to the One Mic Show.
Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Anajisikiliza kwa radio.
Punguza sauti ya reduce the volume on your gadget.
Last 40924. Hello.
Okay.
Hiyo imeenda.
Hiyo imeenda.
To summarize.
Hiyo imeenda.
Okay. Uno.
Bado yuko ako hoe.
Nafikiri kuna mtu anamwamsha. One mic.
Ama tuongeze.
Wahenga walinena kilicho na mwanzo hakina budi kuwa na mwisho. Meli imetia
nanga.
We are about to wrap this puppy up. Otieno. Oh, sorry. Skiing Omosh.
Wow. I don't know if that's jealousy or if it's he has two left feet.
Boss, remember we skied with you. Remember we've gone.
No, but again, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's jealousy because I'm the one who was bobbing and weaving and I was not falling. I don't know. Kuna mse mwingine alikuwa na dandia ile lift. Sasa kushuka anashuka na lift inamgonga kichwa, but anyway, we won't say who. Thanks DB for showing up. I think like this conversation we can continue having it for days, but summary is be part of a community, be responsible, and the buck starts with you as the parent. Whichever way you want to look at it, the buck starts with you as the parent. So I think and you have to be intentional. We as society, as parents, as leaders in the community, we also need to build this net worth, which is your network, or is it your network that ends up being your net worth?
Yeah.
And because without that, there are some things that you may fall awry on, and the resources are there. It's just you have to go out of your way if it is indeed that, but talk. With that said, see you guys next week. Have a good week. What else is coming up? I think the weather kesho inafaa kuwa poa. I think is it 60? I think I think the weather is supposed to be like 60. I think I think DB might be going out in shorts tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe he's gonna run after a thief or something. But
he'll be intentional.
Yes, he's gonna be intentional as he runs towards the sun. With that said, guys, we'll see you next week. Thanks for being here with us.
For me, thank you very much for having me. This has been, of course, a very interesting conversation. Ali, one of the things I'm thinking of doing sometime this year is I'll start with the grown-ups. It's just doing fun stuff, fun activities for grown-ups. Not too complicated, not too much planning. Show up, let's do this. Take people skiing, a few activities, see if a few adults will show up, and then later then try to bring the kids. That way, just try to form a cadence of different activities. I know what the existing so and when I'm ready or when that's set up, I'll come back to the show and I'll share the details. Like I said earlier, what my mom used to say, my mom actually used to say there are very many ways of skinning a cat. I don't know why a cat, but there are very many ways of doing something. And if you listen to the show, the idea was not to praise one way of doing something, was to share as many different perspectives on this issue that's challenging. That is how we're raising our child, how we're raising our children, the challenges, the devices are presenting, but also the way we create a community or we create guardrails around them as parents, intentional parenting, the people you put around them. Wherever you are in whatever situation, it's my mom, again, I'll quote my mom. My mom always used to say, there's no problem that does not have a solution, but there's one problem that solves all your problems, and that's death. So as long as you're still here, and as long as you're still breathing, as long as you're still moving, no matter if we said you start at 9, your child is 17 or 15 or 16, start doing something. Start just being in their life, start being intentional, start doing something. The best way to do anything is almost always the hardest way. And you just start, and it will be challenging in the beginning. And with love and your Creator's grace, and intentionality, it will be okay. I always try to encourage each and everyone that I come across that no matter what's going on in your life, that there's always a chance that tomorrow will be better than today, and that's worth taking the effort to try to improve it. Other than that, It is me, Giteri Steven Nganga, aka Dombolo, DB Dizo, Father Abraham. Watoto ni wengi, lakini mapenzi imezidi. Haiwezi kosa. Till next time. Bye. Thank you on Mike Show.
All right, asante sana DB. Like it was very nice having you in studio. Very interesting conversations. And the one thing that I would say, like both as myself and also as a parent, it is very important to understand that there's people who've done this before you, and it's important to seek counsel, especially when you're in a situation where there's some kind of confusion, you're not sure what's happening. There's people who's done this before you. Hii mambo ya kujaribu kufigure out, like everything by yourself.
And it's not for everything.
And then you're also ukija kushauriwa hivi kidogo, unakasirika, unalipuka. That is not a good thing. I think that's one of the things that over time, like as Africans, we have lost. And we need to figure out a way of going back there. And also, we're at a point right now where people are starting to appreciate that these kids who are born here, they actually want to belong. That first generation, when kids were young, there was just that assumption that these kids are so happy to be Americans. This is the way they'll be all their lives. But now when people go to college, they start having that epiphany that I want to know my identity. And for some, it starts even in high school. Like I want to learn my language. I want to do this. So it's very important to anchor those, whatever you want to call them, whether it's values, or whether it's identity, or just something that that the children can grow up very proud of knowing. There was someone who once said that the difference between African Americans and Africans,
continental Africans, right?
And continental Africans is that African Americans have a very high level of confidence but very low self-esteem. And Africans are the opposite. They have very high self-esteem but they have a lower level of confidence.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, so that's something to think about. Na kwa hayo machache, yote ambaye anataka kunipigia simu, nambari yangu bado ni ile 1-800 mteule. Operator akishika simu, mwambie unataka kusema na mjukuu. Na akikuuliza ni mjukuu yupi, kumbushe ni mjukuu yule wa Masai. Because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui na sibagui. Kwaherini.
Unaona?
Hey, by the way, wacha nisalimie mama Akinyi, mama Yana.
Asiye kuwepo na lake alipo.
Yeah, wewe
ukitaka utamfuata nyumbani kwake.
Good night.
Wewe
kwa studio.
Ayupo.
Yeah, ayupo.
Unamwona.
Umemwona.
Daddy loves you. Nimeona kichwa. Aiden. Daddy loves you. Jerry, Daddy loves you. Nimo, Daddy loves you. Until next week, be best.
All right. Ndugu zangu Kristo kwa resmi ndema na Ramadhani Mubarak kwa wale ambao mnaendelea kufunga. Najua sikufungua na hili. Lakini yes. So to add into the conversation pale before ni kwamba Ali umezungumzia kuhusiana na swala la belonging, and I'm not dismissing everything kuhusiana na watu don't feel like they belong where they are. So last week when I wasn't here, was that last week, maybe 2 weeks ago? When I missed the show, it's because I was in Seattle for the training on not only welcoming, but belonging. So we have to make sure that not only in places of worships, but at the same time, hata katika groups, kwamba people they can feel welcomed, but at the same time, wakanaweza kufeel kwamba wana belong. Na hiyo ni mission, kwa sababu the reason we had that, because kuna baadhi ya watu wachache wanasababisha the entire image. It's like kama receptionist, we want to make sure akiwa yuko vizuri hapa, and then that will be a problem. Mtu anaweza kufeel kwamba they don't belong in here. So au wapo, but like I say, aushindi mtihani mpaka ufanye. So ni jukumu letu kufanya hivyo.
Au watu kama Gashagwa.
Achana na Gashagwa. Wameuliza tu kwani mlitaka na nani mmemwona Muhindi. Shukrani sana kwa nafasi ya kukaa hapa, kwa wewe ambao umekuwa na sisi kwa muda wote. Asante sana. Hii ni nafasi, ni baraka. Wenyewe nasema tunahudumia taifa. Naitwa Mobelo Twinum kama sama Nikulinda Peter Bandio, mwana mama Paulina, baba Paulina. Kwenye reggae anaita Rasta Twin. Rasi ya Rasta ni a real African soldier, na Twin sema pacha, hata kama wanifuatao ni mapacha. Mosh Fire anafunga na kitu namna hii. Twende kazi baba.